Chelsea Clinton has a new podcast called That Can't Be True. This podcast is funded by the Clinton Foundation and currently has 25 reviews with an average of 2.3 stars on Spotify. So if you'd be so kind, head on over to Spotify today and give This Dumb Week a 5-star rating so that we can beat Chelsea Clinton. And with that out of the way, welcome to This Dumb Week, a weekly live Twitter space hosted by Alex Marinos and yours truly, Dr. Rollergator. Available in podcast form on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, and others. Alex, welcome back. Have you had a sufficiently dumb week?
Oh, yeah. I mean, at this rate, it's not over yet. Just think else is going to happen in the next 6 hours or whatever is left.
Well, over here on the upper East Coast, I am currently buried underneath of 1.5 feet of snow and still snowing, so that's fun.
So you would say you're neck deep in ice?
How short do you imagine me to be? I granted, my height is usually done lengthwise, but I can stand up and still get a nice 3 to 4 feet of coverage in my alligator body.
If I'm knee deep in ice, I repeat, ice. Sorry.
Well, tiny little ice particles.
I see. By the way, I might have been late, but I do have some incredible technical detail about the architecture of X and the product direction that this company is going. Would you like to hear it?
Absolutely, sir.
So I had my X app open, as I do, and I clicked on this space URL that is usually the way to come here, and nothing happened. And the same thing had happened last week. It just returned me to some kind of like home screen. And then I did it again, and I did it again. And I was like, why are the clicks just going nowhere? And then I remembered that I had agreed to use the preview version that they push from the main app. And thank God there was like a return to the original version of the app. They didn't tell you that Spaces is missing. It's just not there.
That is a preview version.
So, I mean, wow. Sure. Except you don't view some of the features at all. pre or no pre.
I see. That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, we're going to get into this show today, and I'm going to play a brief clip from a previous episode we did back in November 23rd, because it will introduce the story that we have the update to and refresh everyone's minds so that it's fully explained what the story is about. The FBI was doing some non-Epstein related things this week, Alex, and I don't know if you're as concerned as I am about the Olympic snowboarder to international hitman / narco terrorist pipeline.
Oh, that is a well-known problem. Yeah.
The New York Times. FBI fugitive ex-Olympic snowboarder faces new charges, including ordering murder of witness. The FBI and U.S. Department of Justice charged Ryan Wedding, a Canadian former Olympic snowboarder, with overseeing the operations of a criminal enterprise and ordering multiple murders, including the shooting death of a federal witness in January. Wedding, who is still at large, competed in the 2002 Winter Olympics. He was first indicted in June 2024 on charges of running a continuing criminal enterprise, murder and conspiring to possess, distribute, and export cocaine. In October 2024, authorities announced that a superseding indictment included charges of trafficking large quantities of cocaine from California to Canada, 3 counts of murder, and 1 count of attempt to commit murder. Wedding, 44, was accused of orchestrating the November 2023 murder of 2 individuals in Ontario, Canada, in response to a stolen drug shipment. In March, Wedding was added to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list and accused of running a drug trafficking network that disrupted hundreds of kilograms of cocaine between Colombia, Mexico, U.S., and Canada. In the latest DOJ indictment, Wedding faces new charges stemming from the shooting of a death of a federal witness in Colombia last January. The FBI also increased the reward for information on Wedding's...
This is getting very confusing.
Colombia, Mexico. So I'm not assuming British Columbia. I'm assuming actual Colombia. FBI also increased the reward for information on Wedding's whereabouts from $10 million to $15 million. Authorities believe the Canadian national is hiding in Mexico. Quote, to eliminate threats and advance his enterprise interests, Wedding issued orders to murder various individuals, including in order to kill the victim, a witness in a 2024 federal narcotics case against Wedding, which resulted in the victim's death, the DOJ stated Wednesday. Wedding placed a bounty on the victim and enlisted the services of others to locate and kill the victim. Wedding is alleged to have served as Canada's primary distributor of cocaine and collaborated with the powerful Sinaloa cartel in Mexico, according to U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. Quote, whether you're the kingpin or dealer on the street, anyone who sells drugs to our kids will be arrested and prosecuted, Bondi said, unless it's the CIA. Ryan Wedding controls one of the most prolific and violent drug trafficking organizations in the world and works closely with the Sinaloa cartel. We will not rest until his name is taken off the FBI's top 10 most wanted list and his narco trafficking organization is either dismantled. So good news, Alex, as that last statement read, the FBI will not rest until he is apprehended, and now we have an update where the FBI can finally get some rest.
Tonight, one of the FBI's most wanted now under arrest. Former Olympic snowboarder Ryan Wedding captured, surrendering to authorities, accused of shipping tons of cocaine into the U.S. Here's Pierre Thomas now.
Tonight, the former Olympian turned alleged drug kingpin who rose to the top of the FBI's most wanted list, now in U.S. custody, surrounded by top DEA and FBI officials, including Director Kash Patel.
This individual and his organization and the Sinaloa cartel poured narcotics into the streets of North America.
Sources say that 44-year-old Ryan Wedding, who competed in the 2002 Winter Games in Salt Lake City as a snowboarder, turned himself in after days of intense negotiations with Mexican and U.S. officials, surrendering overnight in Mexico City. The FBI claims that Wedding, whose aliases include El Jefe, Giant, and Public Enemy, ran a massive drug trafficking enterprise that allegedly smuggled cocaine to the U.S. and Canada.
Mr. Wedding is also wanted for orchestrating multiple murders of victims and government witnesses.
According to a 2025 grand jury indictment, Wedding issued an order to kill a federal witness who was set to testify against him. That witness shot 5 times in the head while he was eating at a restaurant. Authorities sought Wedding, who's Canadian, for years. Law enforcement officials saying they seized drugs, cash, weapons, and $40 million worth of motorcycles. And this car, which they say is valued at $15 million.
David, law enforcement officials have been hunting for Wedding for years, and there was a $15 million reward for his capture that tells you what a high-value target he was. David?
Pierre Thomas.
So there you go, Alex. Now, I know you scoff at the idea of this Olympic snowboarder to international hitman / narco-terrorist pipeline, but when you are spending your life dedicated to dealing with one type of snow, switching to another type of snow is very, very easy to do. And so I just want to make you understand there is a slippery slope between this snow business.
You sound like a man with experience, so I'll just take it from you.
Now, we have another story here that actually we don't have a clip that we need to play from before, but I do have a little bit of a statement to make after this particular story that we have updating on.
A former flight attendant tonight facing federal charges, allegedly scamming his way onto hundreds of flights in scenes straight out of a movie.
Are you a real life pilot?
Sure am, little lady. Dallas Pekornik's social media appearing to capture the escapades, seen sipping a drink on a private jet, and another enjoying a trip from London to Manhattan. Federal authorities charging Pekornik with 2 counts of wire fraud, accusing the 33-year-old Canadian citizen of a con mirroring the plot of the hit 2002 film Catch Me If You Can.
The jump seat is open.
It's been a while since I've done this. Which one's the jump seat again?
Prosecutors say Pekornik followed a similar script, allegedly using a counterfeit badge from a former employer to turn the friendly skies into a personal shuttle service. Court documents allege over 4 years he falsely claimed he was an airline pilot and presented a fictitious employee identification card to obtain hundreds of flights at no cost.
It's really incredible that the airline and the airport did not properly vet this individual. I would suspect it was a multi-tiered, multi-layered failure of our aviation system.
Turbulence finally hit in Panama, where authorities arrested Pekornik, extraditing him to Hawaii, where prosecutors call him a serious flight risk.
And tonight, Pekornik's attorney has yet to respond to NBC News' request for comment. His client, meanwhile, has pleaded not guilty. Tom?
So there you go, Alex. Now, in a previous episode, you had mentioned that it was your understanding that the story of Frank Abagnale Jr., the person who the movie Catch Me If You Can is based off of, that story he told of his criminal past was itself fraudulent, if you recall that discussion at all, or at least you recall.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
I'm glad you added that back.
See, look at how much I'm trying to tie all of our history together, sir, to make sure our listeners are aware that we do keep up on the things that we discuss. Now, when you did say that, you didn't elaborate as much about how you knew that the story was fraudulent, and so I've been starting to look into that to prepare a story to see, go through that. I don't know personally whether or not it was fraudulent. I have seen the claims now that you've mentioned it, so I'm going to be preparing some research in the near future to go into the depth of that to find out myself one way or another whether I think there is truth to that. So far, I found that his claims of this story go back to the mid to late 70s. So it was a long time that he's been claiming these stories if it indeed was fraudulent. Now, there's a good possibility that he would have more success claiming this history, given the fact that if he started in the mid 70s, the potential for him to be ousted.
This all started in a game show, right?
There's a game show involved in some way, yes. Like as part of one of his stories, there's a game show. To Tell the Truth was the game show.
He came to prominence. The first public recording of his stories that we have is in that game show.
Okay, I don't know if it's the first. I don't know if it's the first. I'll look into that.
I'm just saying, when you said in the mid 70s, is that what you're referring to?
No, I'm talking about the one of my pastimes is I look at basically online microfilm of newspapers throughout the United States and Canada and some parts of the world too, but it's less extensive over the world, just because it's an extensive history of newspapers, just all newspapers, local, national, and I like to look and review news stories that are contemporaneous to the time of particular news or people, to try to trace their news history throughout time. And I started to investigate, and that's when he started popping up in any newspapers, is the mid 70s.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. By the way, I think this is going to break at some point into the mainstream, but both me and my wife have done something similar with looking into our respective grandfathers, where we looked at contemporary stories of their lives, and my case, the case of my grandfather's death, it's wild. Just to see the stuff that is sort of depicted in the photos in the newspaper that is printed. I guess you know, but maybe a lot of people who listen to us don't, how newspapers work. But when you get the evening edition, right, that was typeset in the morning, so they literally were putting in character by character, and it's also a time window during which they're doing it. So if there's a breaking story towards the later part of their procedure, and like they have to say stop the press, literally, you will see it like towards the geographical towards the end of the newspaper. So, but that information that they put there is literally like the first thing they hear, right? They have no time to sort of formalize anything at all. So they just kind of go with what they have, which is a great way to not necessarily get the truth, but to get the first sort of cut of whatever was going around.
And that practice is still tried and true today.
Yeah, today everything else has withered. That's the only thing, the only part of the media that's left.
Except now they get to just delete paragraphs or sentences from the online articles and hope that nobody notices.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, that's one of the things that I'm looking into. because you sparked my interest on that, and I started putting a little bit of time aside to go and investigate that history, both where the claims come from that his story was fraudulent, but also to see if I can find out what information exists contemporaneously to piece back together what parts of his story may be true.
I think the most specific thing you can look that you can probably find records of is that he was in prison during the time that many of his supposed escapades happened. So that's pretty definitive.
I guess that means he did at least something.
That's right. He was not doing nothing. He was in prison. Oh, he did something, all right, and then it is very clear what he did. He was defrauding people like normal, regular people, not.
But the story makes him look like he was very successful at it, and if he was in prison, he might not have been that good.
Yes. No, he went to prison multiple times, if I remember correctly. So yes, he was terrible at it. Anyway, yeah. But hey, he apparently got better because we still believe that story. So
yes,
so
I guess.
The judge.
So I'm looking forward to eventually doing that story. I have actually several longer form stories on in the pipeline here to get to in the near future that I think will be good.
Gator, I hate to disappoint you, but I would just set fire to them right now.
Oh no, why?
I don't think we'll ever have a chance to do any long form stories the way the news is going. I think we're going to need to have a daily show, even if that.
Well, maybe I'll just have to pre-record them as a midweek release or something.
Yes.
Something like that. But this next story is near and dear to my heart. In fact.
Oh wait, can I jump in on this last story?
Absolutely, sir.
Oh, I was just going to say, first of all, how do you get extricated to Hawaii, for one? That's kind of fun. And number two, I was recently at an FBO, and the level of security is basically zero. Like, you can just go sit in like a lounge and then go walk onto a jet, and nobody cares.
Oh yeah.
Did you consider piloting a plane while there?
Piloting, no, but I can see how you could get away with this for 4 years.
Well, thank you for advising everyone of the national security issue at hand. That is just apparently
national security opportunities, really.
Yes,
depending on what side of the ledger you're on.
Well, this next story is short but near and dear to my heart. In fact, the Gator campaign has run on this platform every single election since we started campaigning, and that is running under the slogan of "Stop fucking with the clocks."
Bringing forward as early as possible. On March 8th, we are set to lose an hour of sleep. That's the earliest possible start date since national law mandates the clocks change on the second Sunday of March. And on Capitol Hill, Congress is looking at those two bills that aim to make daylight saving time permanent in the U.S. President Trump has urged lawmakers in the past to do away with the time change. So our first official spring story of 2026.
Now, if Trump pulls this off and gets rid of, the messing with the clocks, whether it's the standard time that stays or the daylight savings time that stays, I don't care. Pick one, stick to it. He will be the greatest president of all time, no matter whether the country lasts past him. As long as the time changing stops, he will be the greatest president of all time, Alex. That's my. Yeah. I'm a single issue voter / campaigner.
Gator, I'm tempted to get you write you a script that just sort of subjectively changes your time. If we can avoid this.
That makes it more complicated. That makes everything more complicated.
Not for you. You won't know what's happening.
I never want to deal with time zone conversions or my own unique time clock.
Oh, my friend, that's not gonna. Have I told you about the quarter time zone in India?
Oh my God, there's so many bad things about time zones. Fortunately, I've never had to deal with the quarters or the halves.
I mean, thank God someone maintains the Linux file that somehow mostly just works. Not to mention the fact that time zones change in the history. So you have to keep all the history of what all the time zones were in the past by the time you go back and look at some previous date. Yes, and also, if you go look at like a US map on like time.nist.gov, we've got like weird half state lines for no particular reason. You've got the tribes that have their own time zone in Arizona, and it's just all kind of a mess.
And heaven help you with people who aren't on the Gregorian calendar and have their own ways of
if I had a tribe gator just to get on your nerves, I would be running it on the Swiss watch beat.
Well, fortunately, it's to my knowledge.
System?
Fortunately, to my knowledge, nobody's operating on a non 24-hour day time period. So at least
I was
they
just
can
going to
line
say,
up
what
that
happens
way.
when we go to the moon and Mars? Whose time do you use? It's like close enough,
watch
but
beat,
like not
man.
really.
Yeah. I love that system. Anyway,
Nicholas, it looked like you had some thoughts that you
Nathan.
wanted to chime in about. If you still have them, you wanted to make a comment there, Nicholas. If not, all right.
I think we knocked him out with that time zone conversation. Some people have PTSD from that.
Well, this next story, Alex, is going to be partially you heavy because it's going to be your story to sort of expand upon here. But I'm going to play a clip from December 28th where we talked about something that is a good lead-in for this particular subject. Well, you and I seem to approach certain things where we can identify an action that we specifically say is wrong. We can say this action is wrong, and we believe, let's say that this is a legitimate place for the government to say that something should be a crime. This action is a crime. But when you encounter that the crime still occurs after you declare it a crime, okay, there is a set of people who wish to go further down what you might say is the causal chain or an indirect causal chain to then make the things that are downstream that might lead to a larger correlation between the activity that is a crime and make those things also illegal. Right, clamp down on those activities where you and I stop at the crime is the thing itself. And that is the thing that is legitimate to try to, to penalize people for, to punish people for. And that everything downstream of that is legal. Right. If you want to stop it, if you think that one thing has a tendency to lead to another, maybe you can solve that in the social and cultural layer, but you don't make a thing that should otherwise be legal a crime just because there's a probability that the person who does it might commit a crime later, right?
Yep.
But there are people who don't hold that, and they will chase an endless sequence of precursor events until they squash out finally the incidence of the crime, right?
Well, I mean, that's how we won the war on drugs, though. Think about it.
Yes. But do you
have fentanyl today?
Do you think that sort of landscape has some value? Because that's how I view a lot of things. I view that type of dynamic.
True. It's true. It's just that once you get to that point, you realize that like that kind of reasoning is everywhere, right? Like when you say like, oh, it's an aggravated crime because you did it while calling the other one a bad name, right, or whatever. Like, or if you do it over the internet, it's wire fraud. It's not just it's not just calling people bad names or whatever, or going to a URL that is available but not password protected but not indexed, right? That is not like okay. Sure, no, it is a wire crime or whatever they call it. And they've got these sort of add-ons that can turn things that are normally normal, but they're done in a context that is somehow enhanced and criminally enhanced. I mean, in a certain sense, it's how you don't have a lot of precursors for drugs available as chemicals, right? Even though they're chemicals that are very useful for all sorts of things, you can't get them because they are precursors. What I'm saying is the philosophy of this goes in all sorts of directions and is extremely widespread, and I wouldn't be surprised if somebody was to scan the archives of our conversations and would find us sort of alluding to such principles before, because it's just so.
Well, Alex, it is time to allude to such principles yet again, and this is where you recently tweeted maybe a day or so ago. Washington state law looks to set to pass banning sale or transfer of 3D printers or other manufacturing equipment that don't have some imaginary technology that does not and cannot exist. It mandates a, quote, firearm blueprint detection algorithm that cannot be circumvented. And I know I'm putting you on the spot to carry on with this, but I believe that you would have been sufficiently passionate about this to have the ability to carry on from here, Alex, to further introduce us to this particular next topic.
Yep. So, this is a thing. Apparently, there are 2 bills, I think, making their way through the Washington State Legislature, and a couple more in New York. I don't have the exact listing.
I have one bill. I have one bill on hand for us to go over.
The HB 2321, I think, right? Let me read you some. Of the
2321. Yes,
the
I have that. If you have it too, that's cool.
I'm just reading from my tweet and just scrolling up and down, but you might find other things that are interesting, but I'll just read the headlines, and you can get, if you have more, you can do that too. But one is that they basically mandate a software controls process, which means a system designed to stop a 3-dimensional printer from initiating any print job unless the underlying 3-dimensional printing file has been evaluated by a firearms blueprint detection algorithm and detected not to be a printing file that would produce a firearm or illegal firearm parts. Okay, so you can't do that anymore, or at least you can't sell a device that would do that. Maybe if you have one, I think you're still in the clear, but you know how this goes. But the most incredible part of all of that, well, there's 2 actually that are excellent. The one is that when they talk about that blueprint detection firearm thing algorithm, they say it has to work with a high degree of reliability and cannot be overridden or otherwise defeated by a user with significant technical skill. Okay, and just to put a cherry on a cake, it says, this is about 3D printers, or B, any machine capable of making 3-dimensional modifications to an object from a digital design file using subtractive manufacturing. That means lathes and CNCs. So long as they're computer controlled, they also qualify. We are going back to the Stone Age. Nothing that is going to be legal in the state except for software.
So I think
Boeing can just move to Canada or something.
This deserves a lot of like, let's say, individual analysis, because there's probably many people for whom the problems with this approach are clear, but then also many others where they're not in sort of the manufacturing of anything type of world. So they don't necessarily see all of the problems. Because a long time ago, there was an idea that you could identify the bullets, the purchaser of a bullet, by like having a stamp on things and being able to track it to the individual who fired it, and like all sorts of imaginary stuff that people come up with to try to keep control firearms. And so just in saying, well, we can use AI basically, which is everybody's idea to solve everything, let's just use AI, is going to be like, oh, this part is clearly going to be for a gun because our AI detected it as being such. But one of the problems, if I'm not mistaken here, which is fairly trivial, so I shouldn't be mistaken in any way, is that in general, any particular let's say, file that defines the parts that you are going to composite into a gun can be split into multiple files such that there is no way to know that a particular part is part of a composite.
Correct. But I also want to add one more thing, which makes things, I think it'll be obvious how much more complicated things become. When you send a file to a 3D printer or other similar manufacturing machines, you do not send, make me a cube or whatever, right? What you send is what is called a toolpath. So you literally send the vectors that the printer's nozzle has to follow, right? So what they're saying is you have to reverse engineer that and figure out if the printer's nozzle follows this path, what will it create?
Well, so
is that a gun?
Right. The point I was making with the splitting them up is that if you were to hand a schematic file, and that schematic file also included some sort of post construction assembly involved, you could infer from the assembly what the intention of the parts were.
Sorry, keep doing.
That was the point, and you could split this up, and so now all you're doing is getting the parts.
Sure, yeah,
and
of course. What I'm saying is like it's not even that as simple as look at the shape. Yes, you can split up the shape. If you imagine that it could look at the shape, you can confuse it, but it can't even do that. It has to.
Well, we can use the blockchain to have chain of custody from the CAD file to the step file, and then the printer can log that it printed it on the blockchain.
It talks about stereolithography, by the way.
That it's not a gun on the blockchain. See, the blockchain solves everything.
It does, by the way, talk about stereolithography files, which is the .stl files, which never actually go to the printer. That's the precursor file that goes to the slicer. Anyway, but I want to just add a little bit more here because
please. I think we should spend a decent amount of time.
Here's one way to think about this, just to realize like how friggin' ridiculous this is. What is a 3D printer? And I say this, on most things I'm not an expert. Like here I am surrounded with a dozen 3D printers, right? This is what I do. A 3D printer is a motherboard, okay? Like a Raspberry Pi, for example, or like something more specialized.
Raspberry Pi, for those uninitiated, is a cheap computer. It is a very tiny,
not a food item.
Inexpensive computer. Yes. Not a food item.
It's the minimum viable Linux or Windows computer. Okay, which can be used for anything, right? But literally, like, I mean,
you can even run.
I can tell you a lot.
Local large language models on them, of a particular size.
Don't get them in on that. They're definitely gonna ban. Now we're totally screwed. So you need a computer of any variety that is like powerful enough to run, an operating system, or less actually. So many printers don't even have that much capability. I'm just telling you like one way to do it. So you need a Raspberry Pi. You need some stepper drivers, which is basically the ability to drive a motor, right? Some motors. And once you get there, you need some belts, some extrusions. My point is this. These very same things are part of any robotics kit, okay? If you want to do a robot that does pick and place or just walks around your house, I don't know, like whatever robotic kind of automation you want to do, you're using the exact same things. So how, Washington and New York legislators, are you planning to stop somebody from selling a robotics kit that can be turned into a 3D printer? Which is trivial. Like, I mean, it is, many people do it that way. Right? They buy the parts and they put together the thing.
Or even like a conveyor belt, basically, right? Like it's even dumber than robotics.
Yes, exactly. Precisely. It truly, it's dumber than robotics. So how are you going to prevent people from, I don't know, like buying KitchenAids? Like, like these are extremely common things that you can take and put together and make a 3D printer. How are you going to stop them? You're either talking about putting DRM on literally every like fundamental piece of mechatronics or electronics that you can find that has the ability to actuate reality, or you're just planning to make, something illegal just in case you want to go after somebody, which is a different story. But what they're talking about per se, right, is if they actually are serious about saying you cannot sell a device, right, and we will intervene in the supply chain. I'm just saying that is not possible. That is not a thing that you can do because these things are very, very general. And there's we would have to ban like open source hardware, for example, right? You could not have software that can be modified because, of course, if there was any check and it was part of that open source software, it could be removed, right? So then you need a layer of what they call DRM, which is digital rights management, which is basically lock down the electronics to not be able to do this sort of thing. And of course, my last point is like, let's just say that somehow you got all of that implemented, right? Every, servo that could be used for this kind of purpose, every stepper motor was DRM'd and part of a unified ecosystem. That you've just tripled the price of every 3D printer out there. And for what? Right? Because the algorithm is still not possible to do. It will just run a bad software that is easy to circumvent. On a higher level, but you've now tripled the price of everything. So that's the stupidity of, sorry, just to top it all off, I kid you not, in New York there's a law making its way through the legislature. I hope it's not very far down the line, though I fear it might be. They're talking about background checks for people who buy 3D printers. This is where we are. This is where we are.
Well, now,
this
there's
also
a main
feels
flaw.
like just not a problem. Like, how many people are getting killed by 3D printed guns?
No, I mean, if whoever killed Mangione or whoever killed that guy had the wherewithal to buy a proper weapon, he would probably have harmed that guy a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, we also have more guns than people in the United States already, so it's not like there's a shortage of guns, and they're just kind of available.
And also, even if we didn't, right, I welcome people to look into the case of the assassination of Shinzo Abe in Japan, where they don't have weapons actually, like, sort of permeated in the population. The guy basically took 2 steel tubes and a nail. And if you can actuate a projectile, you can do some damage. Was it the most usable firearm? No, but it did the job. So, yeah, that's a situation we're faced here. Like, you're trying to prevent knowledge effectively from going around. We now know about gunpowder, guys. Like, we know how this works.
Whoa! Wait! They've powdered guns. They've made guns into powder now.
That is correct.
Oh man,
it's like Soylent Green. Gunpowder is made of guns.
Oh man. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I fear I'm not making a lot of sense, or I'm not, like, the ridiculousness of the situation is not.
Yeah. So let's break it down.
Across.
Let's break it back down. So the section 1 of this says the definitions of this section apply throughout the chapter. Then part 2 of this section says equipped with a blocking feature means a 3-dimensional printer has integrated a software controls process that deploys a firearms blueprint detection algorithm, such that those features identify and reject print requests for firearms or illegal firearm parts with a high degree of reliability and cannot be overridden or otherwise defeated by a user with significant technical skill. Now, the first problem right off the bat is it assumes that such technology exists, right? Like, you can't just by law invent software. You just can't do it.
You can mandate it, though.
Because someone is required at the moment, even when you're orchestrating the LLMs to write your code for you, some human has to have a sense of how to accomplish the goal, and the goal does have to be knowingly feasible. If it's unknowingly feasible, then there isn't a human or an LLM you can highly reliably say is going to be able to produce the thing that you have. Now, you can easily create a piece of software that gives you a binary outcome that says yes or no. That's easy. So they will get a piece of software that can claim to do these things. But
exactly, if you make a benchmark, right? If you put a bunch of gun design files and you say, whoever can guess the right, yes or no answer on this limited set of, firearm and non-firearm 3D design files, you'll get something. But I think the simplest way to explain this is, how do you tell the difference between a Nerf gun and a gun? Right. So you might say, well, sorry, no more Nerf guns. Okay. Like, how far are you willing to go?
Now, so you had mentioned the STL.
Oh, sorry. Just to top it all off, right? In order to do anything even remotely resembling this, you need some serious artificial intelligence, and that artificial intelligence resides in the cloud, which means you are mandating surveillance for all. Not just 3D printers, but any sort of manufacturing equipment that is computerized from the cloud. Just so we understand what we're talking about.
That would be a presumption, I would say, because you can put any sort of algorithm in the machine to say yes or no.
I can put an automatic yes, right? Or automatic no algorithm. That definitely fits. But I'm talking about if you actually care about actually doing anything like remotely.
Well, a problem. Let's expand
plausible.
On that, because a problem would be that if you're manufacturing and mandating that this algorithm be in place, and as I made the presumption of this algorithm can't just be willed into existence by writing a piece of law that says it needs to be. That means your first version is likely to be less than optimal, even if you do come up with a version of this software, which means if someone buys an off-the-shelf version of a 3D printer and doesn't roll their own 3D printer, that means that the preloaded software that supposedly they can't get around, this preloaded software will not be the most optimal version of it, which means that they will in the future have updates. So what would the update procedure be? And that's where your cloud sort of situation, I believe, would be most reasonable to come in, which is that they'll just host it in the cloud and you're always getting updates on the yes or no mechanism.
Yeah, and by the way, the most locked down printers that are quite popular, that might be even the most popular right now, are from a company called Bamboo Lab. Now, Gator, you have one guess where they are based. Bamboo Lab, think.
Is it Chimerica? That country across
that's right.
the
Yes.
Okay.
Former DJI staffers, right? DJI team members went off and made a 3D printer company. Very good 3D printers, very locked down. The most difficult to control locally, and the most sort of by default connected to the cloud, and the most locked down of the sort of prosumer segment. I'm sure if you go up to the industrial stuff, who knows? But in terms of what you can sort of buy with reasonable budgets, Bamboo is the most sort of locked down and consumer facing, right? The most open and advanced at the same time. So there's ones that are more open but are not so advanced. And
so to be clear,
sort of
are we talking about sort of the difficulty level and the expert level required to use it, meaning there's consumer-based ones that are very locked down from manipulation that the average consumer could be able to use, and that's in comparison to the open source ones that require you to really be more of a computer expert to get it to work properly?
So there isn't... The locking down does not have to do necessarily with the usability, right? It's more that there's a consumer sort of Apple-like sort of sensibility about that company, so they have locked down a lot of things. Right. But for example, their competition is a company called Prusa, and they have manufacturing in two places. One is in the Czech Republic, and the other one is in the USA. Right, and they are much more open source, and you can really slice it and dice it. I actually downloaded the firmware, recompiled it, and deployed it. So we're talking about laws now that are going to take us closer to how China is doing things, and farther away from American manufacturing. Like just the amount of things that are wrong with this law is just so.
But now, an additional component of this is let's pretend that this rolls forward, and somehow the ones that you buy off the shelf are. They come entwined with this model that is arbitrating whether or not the print that you are asking it to do is allowed to be done. There is also a new issue, which is that each of your prints now has to be arbitrated by the government in order to make sure that, one, you're not circumventing this process, and two, that the process is working as intended, and that the accuracy of it saying yay or nay is at least erring on the side of nay, so that, the more nays you have, the more you can't print the guns, right? Like,
That's right. That's right.
And so that means that every print you do has to go to somewhere to be arbitrated. You're not allowed to have things that you do in the privacy of your own home, which is basically like an automatic Fourth Amendment violation.
Yeah, and by the way, for just to be clear, I've never printed anything remotely, firearmy. This is not what I do. I'm not sort of upset about this because it sort of interferes with my hobby in terms of firearms. I'm not a gun person, but I do understand 3D printers and how basic in many ways these machines are, how fundamental they are. And it's absurd to me that somebody will be like, it's like saying, how to say, any printer cannot print, instructions for how to make a incendiary mechanism. And in order to prevent that from happening, we're going to adjudicate all the text that is printed by printers to make sure that it does not contain instructions. Or let's say something else, like child abuse materials, right? Like, let's say something that is objectively, horrendous. Right. So in order to prevent that, Hewlett-Packard has to put spyware that has to adjudicate every print you make to make sure that it's not Or every screen has to adjudicate the pixels that it puts on its
right
on its surface, whether they are something that is illegal or whatever. Like, this is the sort of thing we're talking about.
Now, Section 3 is referring to manufacturers of three-dimensional printers. Now, just on the surface of that section, that would sort of exempt several things. And that would be, manufacturers are most likely in, actual registered businesses, right, who are, selling a product, and that product is a 3D printer. So presumably, just based off of the language of that section of the law, this would not apply to open source, models that you can even design yourself. You're not required to take things that have already been designed and build what's designed.
Sure. Yes, but I mean, usually, even if you make an open source printer, like the most open source, like I bought a printer that is like quite niche. It's called the Positron 3D. Whoever wants to see it, it's kind of cool. That was designed by an amateur, right? Somebody. I don't mean amateur in the sense that they're not very good. They are exceedingly good at what they do. I mean that they did it for the love of the art. They're not like making money on this, and so they're not making money. And the printer is open source, but there's a company called LDO Motors, I think, that will put the pieces together, so you don't have to go around and like buying bearings from here and extrusions from there and screws from the other place and whatever, and then you get it wrong and whatever. They just put all the the parts in a box and they send them to you, and you can download the instructions and put the thing together. So are they a manufacturer or am I a manufacturer? Simple. Like, who's the manufacturer here?
Well, that Section 3 goes on to say, to comply with the attestation requirement of subsection 1 of this section, before selling or otherwise transferring for consideration a three-dimensional printer, the manufacturer must submit to the Attorney General an attestation under penalty of perjury that the manufacturer has equipped all makes and models of the three-dimensional printer sold or transferred in this state with blocking features that meet or exceed the blocking features standard provided in Section 6 and 7 of this Act and any rule and regulations adapted on those sections. So at that point, it does seemingly require that they be a business providing an exchange of goods and services in order to be under this scope, which just makes the normal black market of these things totally wide open. Almost by design.
The question is, there is I'm not super into guns, but my understanding of the law is that the ATF has sort of, narrowed down when they say like a gun, what exactly do they mean? They mean the lower. There's like a piece that is like, you go down to the part of irreducible sort of, complexity of like a gun. Everything else can be like interchangeable and hard to tell whether it is or it isn't. But like, there's one particular piece that is like pretty, well sort of maintained between different, gun types and whatever. So they have kind of created their definition of what is a gun, right? And they say that is the thing. What I'm trying to say is, when you're talking about a 3D printer, that characteristic and uniquely 3D printer-y piece of equipment does not exist. Right. Are you going to go after the manufacturer of the screws, the bearings, the aluminum extrusions, you know what I mean? Like, there's no thing that is only for, I mean, I don't know, you could go after like the nozzles or whatever, but those are accessories. You know what I mean? Like there's no like particularly, what is the heart of a 3D printer? You could say it's a circuit board.
Well, have you ever,
board can be used for anything.
I mean, have you ever heard the old philosophical question of, if you have a broom and you replace the handle, is it still the same broom? Because then if you replace the brushes afterwards, is it still the same broom? You wind up in that philosophical.
To see a ship. That's called to see a ship, and it's usually about a ship. I have never heard it about a broom, but
all right. Well, let's just make the broom version the canonical version for the moment here, and just
Gator's broom from now on.
Gator's broom. Yes, but how many parts do you replace before it's the actual thing is no longer the original thing? Nathan, what were you about to say?
Oh, I was wondering what, if they've specified, are exactly the detection standards. What magical software have they concocted in there?
It has to be really, really good. And you can't circumvent it.
High degree of reliability. The very numerical specification of high degree of reliability. For the purpose of this
really
chapter,
all they say? Oh my God.
For the purpose of this chapter, a firearms blueprint detection algorithm satisfies the blocking features requirement only if it has the capacity to a high degree of reliability to screen three-dimensional printing files, whether in the form of stereolithography files or other computer-aided design files or geometric code. Detect and identify any such files that can be used to program a three-dimensional printer to produce firearms or illegal firearm parts, and flag any such disallowed files for rejection by a software controls process. An algorithm must use, at a minimum, a database of disallowed firearm blueprint files that have been commonly downloaded or shared on public internet forums. The algorithm must have the capacity both to detect files in its database and to actively seek to detect modified versions of those files. The Attorney General may by rule or regulation require that an algorithm evaluate print requests at a minimum against all files in the files database described in Section 8 of this Act. An algorithm does not need to produce a perfect success rate at detecting disallowed files to effectively serve in blocking technology, but must meet the technical standards for detection and flagging of disallowed files that are set forth in the rules. So there's more, but that's
you guys are technical, right? You guys are technical. You know the technical standards for detection?
I have.
What is that technical standard for detection?
But so
it's so funny. You understand that the people who wrote this have no idea what they're talking about. Like, you see the part where you read about stereolithography files?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mentioned this before. These are .stl files. Those never go to the printer. They never do.
I'm only familiar with STL files in the landscape of 3D modeling and computer graphics.
It's the same thing.
So yes, but I don't know what they do in the 3D printing world or don't do.
They represent a 3D object, but in order to send that to the printer, you go through another program called a slicer. And in terms of, at least for the kind of 3D printers I'm talking about, there's other types that have different ways.
Okay, because the 3D printer basically operates in micro adjustments of a two-dimensional space, meaning that it starts with a level 1 plane and designs the level 1 slice and then goes up to another higher level and designs the slice on top of that. Is that correct? Is that what you're talking about with the slicer?
Yeah, these are called layers, right? So you usually, there's other ways to do it, but the classic way is you go layer by layer and you literally tell the nozzle of the printer, where to be when, basically, right? You say go forward, go left, go diagonally for 10
and
centimeters.
So the STL file then describes the object using vertices and things like that.
Correct. It's a mesh.
As a full, what they call a mesh, yes. And that's just basically a composite of points that are connected by lines where required, so that when you were to look at it on your computer, it would resemble the object that you were intending. That gives you the geometric specifications. That gets sent to the slicer to carve it up into individual two-dimensional slices that can then be printed by the printer, roughly speaking.
Right. And that's written in what is called G code, which is some specification from the 50s. I mean, it's literally, it's unbelievably stupid. I spent a lot of time working with it. And it's literally saying, move your nozzle from, X this and Y that to X this and Y that. And while you're going there, extrude at this rate. That's it.
This is good because my relative ignorance is useful, I think, in this case, because I get to ask the fish out of water questions to you, but I also am decently smart enough to kind of navigate myself, so I can hopefully ask the right questions. Is it then, when they're mentioning the STL files, basically the absurdity of what are you doing the identification on? Is it the STL files, or is it the slices that are actually being sent to the printer? Because if it's the STL files, you could always pre-slice them outside of the printer.
You always do. You never slice on the printer. That's what I'm saying. The STL files never make it on the printer. if you're talking about something that's on the printer, it never touches the STL files. I mean, I'm sure somebody somewhere has put a slicer on a printer, but that's just not how it's normally done.
Okay. No, this is really good, because this is one of the, I guess at the moment, my sense is one of the largest holes in this entire idea. I mean, there's many holes, but this is one of the largest, which is that the thing that they would be doing the algorithmic analysis on isn't even sent to the printer. Therefore, how is the printer supposed to analyze it?
Look, you can work backwards, right? You can read the entirety of the G code and like put together a three-dimensional space in which the nozzle is moving. You can do this. I can do this. Like, okay, but it's just that, it just makes it all the more stupid, because now you are working with additional levels of uncertainty and complexity.
Is the software that you use to communicate with the printer, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, you told me last week that this was something that you had just done sort of as a project involved, and I'm just trying to piece two disparate conversations together, is there usually a one-to-one correspondence between the printer that you buy and the software you use to communicate with it?
You mean is there a
universal software, meaning that, like, the question I'm asking basically is, is this component of building, requiring this algorithm in the printers themselves, does that conceptually extend the software that the printers provide you to use with their equipment, therefore making the detector of these, STL files where it's doing the conversion into slicing happen on the software on your computer that's sending the communication to the printer?
The problem with this is that these are open standards. Okay. So again, if you were to say we tightly couple your slicer and your printer, right, now you need DRM, you need to encrypt effectively the path from your computer to the printer. Right now, a lot of these printers are not even connected to a network at all. I have some of them. You literally go with an SD card to the printer, and the printer itself has as much processing power as an Arduino. Like we're talking about, imagine like a computer 30 years ago or something. Like they just don't have a lot of. What they're doing is very, very simple, ultimately. So, okay, so
an Arduino is even typically less capable, at least from the base models, than a Raspberry Pi. It is usually just there with very, very simple instruction sets meant to move servos. So things that would rotate, or move objects around, turn on LED lights and things like that. It is not even something that is originally intended to run an entire operating system like Linux or something.
Correct.
If I'm understanding correctly, essentially the standard on the printers is a bog standard, like practically 1960s era RS-232 type protocol that's entirely open, which doesn't interact with the file at all. Therefore, the only way to implement this would be to do it on the computer before the slicing happens. And therefore, it's absolutely a moot point since all the software is open source.
There are more modern printers that have a Raspberry Pi class device on them. They still don't see the 3D file usually, but they could reverse engineer something like it, I guess. But again, it's just getting very stupid, because we are, even if you stretch this out to fingerprinting, toolpaths, right? Like that's where you'd have to go. You're back to checking a dictionary of known guns. Okay, so if I make mine and I put like a cat's head on it, or like whatever you want, like, or I make it bigger or smaller or whatever. Okay, fingerprinting will get you out of that, but like any like variations basically get you back out, right? And of course you have parameter. Anyway, I don't. There's more things that are coming to me now. I don't want to confuse anybody.
So now this conversation now raises a question though for me. Is it possible that the people who prepared this legislation have been duped a little bit by mandating something that physically, literally cannot be done and therefore is unenforceable as written, therefore making it moot, completely moot, that it would have no effect?
They don't make it moot, right? Because what they can do is selective enforcement after the fact, right? You're like, oh, you have an unlicensed 3D printer. It's like, what do you mean I have how could I license it? Well, you can't.
Okay,
so you have, but you have an unlicensed one. right? That's the one way to think about it. Somebody else actually.
Is it purposely bad then, so that they'll have the hopeful ability to later make things harsher and ban things that they want to ban because this is ineffective?
Truly, I don't know. I mean, again, somebody else suggested that this might be a ploy by a company such as Bamboo, who wanted their model to dominate the industry by killing the entire sort of open source ability to print. Right, like you just won't be able to have an uncontrolled printer available, right? And the 3D printing industry is very open source. Like pretty much everything you do with it is open source. Very friendly, very open, built on sharing. Like this is stuff that normal people, they're technical, but not sort of for the money, have contributed thousands and thousands of little techniques. I could walk you through, like, if you show me one part of the printer, I could give you, a 3-hour lecture on, the variations that it's gone through and who came up with it and how did it, percolate and whatever. And just making them a little bit better every time. So you're going to kill that, right? Okay. To what end, right? So one, way to think about this is that because 3D printing now is becoming a little bit larger, some companies are talking about going public. Bamboo Labs, I think, has sold like 1 million machines or whatever. There is a little bit of money in this now, right? 30 years after it sort of became a thing. I'm talking about home 3D printing, right? Not so the high-end industrial stuff. Maybe this is a way to have regulatory capture, right? Where maybe it will come down to NIST, whatever, to make some standards for what these friggin' algorithms even mean. And it will be a very complicated procedure to certify your algorithm. And then there will be only 2 companies that are able to get through the certification. And the license to have their software on your printer will cost a pretty penny. And, there will be only like 2 or 3 or 4 vendors that are able to get that license. And that's it. That's all the strip printers you get, right? You can imagine this as a very effective way to kill the entire ecosystem.
Well, maybe not if it's limited to just this one stupid state. Or you also said New York, but there are
New York is doing the same. Yeah,
48
similar.
more states. 48 more states where such a thing wouldn't exist. And so I guess the question would be, what effect would it have? It may affect the consumer market, but what effect would it have on the true hobbyists like yourself? And it doesn't seemingly.
Again, you can think of it as a gun enthusiast, right? What's happening to them? You can I guess you could still hand make, if you had like a metalworking workshop, you could probably make yourself a gun.
Well, it also doesn't say anything. It also doesn't say anything about the consumer circumventing these.
But you can definitely make a gun, Alex. Like, people will sell you a template that you can use a drill press and a router, like a DeWalt router that you can buy at Home Depot to machine your lower. And then you can buy all the other kits, since, as you said, a lower is not is the part.
You'll be happy to know that this is now illegal too.
Which bit?
Not now, but it would be if you have a computerized thing.
No, not computerized. Just a drill press and a router. None of it's computerized.
Okay. So you're doing it by hand, basically.
Yeah, you can just do it by hand. They give you a template and the direction and the chunk of metal.
Okay. Right. So yeah. So I guess that's where we're back. We're back to, like, you can't use a computer to do it, but if you use a computer to do it, it's a crime.
Well, I guess, the day that Elon Musk gets Neuralink installed in everyone's brains and the government is just able to make sure that we never think of doing these things, or else we get in trouble. It's
literally unthinkable.
Yes. Well, that's this subject is a transition into a similar vein, but a wider
before
topic.
you move on, I just want to say, I've seen this before, this sort of movement where you got bills showing up in multiple states. I'm afraid to say it doesn't usually stop at 2. I saw it with remember when they were trying to legislate computing limitations for large language models, where you couldn't use more than like a certain number of
you should let me slide into the next topic because it involves that.
Okay, so I will just wrap up this particular point, which is to say, I've seen this before, and unfortunately, when that pattern shows up, where you got bills showing up in multiple states, it's not just two. It usually becomes a rich sort of a stampede of multiple states pushing multiple bills, each one doing it slightly differently, and then you've got advocates basically playing whack-a-mole. And with AI, we had people who were highly motivated to, fund the right kind of lobbyists to push back. I'm worried about 3D printing because, the 3D printing industry is not exactly Silicon Valley.
Well, we're kind of sticking to the same topic, even though the object of discussion is no longer 3D printing. We are moving on to the discussion of AI and similar types of behavior with the intent to build laws prohibiting certain activities, and we are going to review our favorite communist senator Bernie Sanders and sort of a policy position he has been taking and promoting recently very heavily. I mentioned this last week. It was on the stack and it's been bumped to this week, but your 3D printer issue gave us a great way to transition because the topic is somewhat the same.
Thanks very much for joining me to discuss a very important issue. Artificial intelligence and robotics will transform the world. It will bring unimaginable changes to our economy, our politics, warfare, foreign policy, our emotional well-being, our environment, and how we educate and raise our children. Further, unbelievable but true, there is a very real fear that in the not too distant future, a super intelligent AI could replace human beings in controlling the planet. That's not science fiction. That is a real fear that very knowledgeable people have. Despite the extraordinary importance of this issue and the speed at which it is progressing, AI is getting far too little discussion in Congress, the media, and within the general population.
Now, do you agree with that sentiment that it's getting far too little discussion? Because I don't know if I'm in a bubble, but
no, it's getting appropriately little discussion. If you ask me, if we could just get them to talk about something else, I'd be very, very happy.
So Alex, do you agree so far with St. Bernard's statement here that there's a very real fear that AI could control the entire world soon?
I just loved the construction of his statement. Sorry if I'm being pedantic here, but he said, it's not science fiction. It's a very real fear that knowledgeable people have. And it's yes. That is an improper, I don't know what it's a pigeonhole fallacy or whatever it's called. But these are not the only two categories, and they're not mutually exclusive. So I don't know what the fuck you're trying to say here. It could be science fiction and a fear that people who are knowledgeable do have because they believe that future will happen, for example. Okay, you're putting these two things as opposites or mutually exclusive. And it's like saying, the food is not too salty. I repeat, the food is not too salty. It's just very hot. It's very hot.
Well, I think it's not just the elderly crazy man behind the camera who's saying this. It's really smart people, Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, it is true that it's really smart people, but that really doesn't say much because oh my god. Anyway,
several months ago, as the ranking member of the U.S. Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, I undertook an investigation regarding the monumental challenges that we face with the rapid development of artificial intelligence. And very recently, I held a public discussion at Georgetown University with Nobel Prize winner Dr. Geoffrey Hinton, considered to be the godfather of AI, the guy who really brought this subject to the place that it is now, to get his views on a wide range of AI-related subjects. Based on our investigation and other information that we are gathering, my staff and I will soon be presenting a very specific set of recommendations to Congress as to how we can begin addressing some of the unprecedented threats that AI poses. Here are just some of the outstanding questions that we intend to answer in our report. First, and maybe most importantly, who should be in charge of the transformation into an AI world? Currently, a handful of the very wealthiest people on earth, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Peter Thiel, and others, are investing many, many hundreds of billions of dollars in developing and implementing AI and robotics. Are we comfortable with seeing these enormously powerful men, handful of people, shape the future of humanity without any democratic input or oversight? Is the goal of the AI revolution simply to make the very, very richest people on earth even richer and even more powerful? Or will this revolutionary technology be utilized to benefit all of humanity? That is the question. Who benefits from this incredible transformation of society? Why does Donald Trump, who is strongly supporting these big tech oligarchs, want to impose an executive order blocking states from regulating AI? Why does Peter Thiel, the billionaire investor and co-founder of Palantir, call those who want regulations over AI, quote, legionnaires of the Antichrist, end quote? Does this elite group of multi-billionaire big tech guys really believe that they have the divine right to rule? Are we going back to the 19th century, where you had in those days kings and monarchs saying God gave them the right to rule? Is that what these guys are saying today? How far will they go to resist government regulation? So that's one huge issue that we've got.
All right, Alex, before we continue, so far, how are you feeling about St. Bernard's?
So I have sent you a direct message. Can you find I've sent you a clip with this Geoffrey Hinton that Bernie quoted, and I think you would find the contrast between what Hinton says and what Bernie just said amusing and enlightening.
All right, give me 1 second.
I don't know if you can find
More optimistic than I was. Yes. More optimistic than I was a few weeks ago.
Really?
Yes. And it's because I think there is a way that we can coexist with things that are smarter and more powerful than ourselves that we built. Because we're building them, as well as making them very intelligent, we can try and build in something like a maternal instinct. So, like I said earlier, the only example I know of a much more intelligent thing being controlled by a much less intelligent thing is a baby controlling a mother. And the baby can control the mother because of a lot of things that evolution wired into the mother. The mother can't bear the baby crying. The mother really, really, really wants that baby to succeed and will do more or less anything she can to make sure her baby succeeds. We want AI to be like that. So the leaders of the tech companies are all thinking in terms of us being the boss and the AI being the submissive assistant, something very smart, but we're in charge and it's our assistant and we can fire the assistant if we want. We're the boss because that's how they think.
All right, I'm starting to lose the analogy here. So if we were babies, we could fire our mother? Is that...
And you can't, that's the thing. You are a ward of the nanny state forever.
and I wonder if we could get some
elderly socialist
Jordan Peterson clips.
Finally sees hope.
I wonder if we could get some Jordan Peterson clips about the devouring mother mythology. You know the.
Yes. So do you understand? Like, so this man. Yeah. So go ahead.
Superintelligence. What is feasible is for it to be the mother and us to be the baby. And even though it can rewrite its own code if it wants to, it won't want to. If you took a mother and said, would you like to turn off your maternal instinct? Most mothers would say no, because they'd realize if I did that, my baby would die, and I don't want my baby to die.
My mother was on a significant number of antidepressants her whole life. So, yes, they do actually want to rewire themselves quite frequently sometimes. There's plenty of things that I'm losing the analogy.
The picture's starting to become clear.
But at least the person that he's quoting is not exactly echoing the same sentiment. That's one thing here, but I'm not also too impressed with the expertise of the expert that he's quoting. So,
look, okay, let's put something maybe beyond the joking. Let's put some things in place. Hinton is legitimately, maybe by some accident of fucking nature, or maybe he's just a stubborn, mofo. But he did stick with neural networks throughout the dark ages when nobody cared. Right. Yes. His students include people like Ilya Sutskever and Alex, whatever, I don't remember his last name, who did AlexNet, that revolutionized the space. Sure. Right. He was at the University of Toronto at the critical time when this technology took a turn. OK, right. He is. I don't know if he's the godfather of AI. For all I know, he was sitting at his office and just letting his students do whatever they wanted, or he could have had a lot of the key ideas. I don't know. But he is a legitimate, dude in the space. He's not some rando, he's not like Gary Marcus, who keeps going around saying he invented the best AI in the world and we're not listening to him or something. Like he actually has, I don't want to say the word credentials, but he has the bona fides. Okay.
Right.
How do you guys?
Yes.
Anyway, beyond that, he is a socialist at heart, and I don't mean to make everything about the commies, but listen to the guy. Seriously.
Yeah.
And even at the same time, I think what he's saying is not entirely wrong. You can find me saying that, we're going to build the third layer of the brain, right? Like you've got the limbic system and the neocortex, and you can build the metacortex. Okay, which is not that different, I guess, from what he's saying. But I just find his framing just so ridiculously stupid. He has to make it a mother, by the way. He can't make it a father, right? It has to be the nanny.
So
it has to be the mommy.
The analogy is really, really bad. The analogy is really, really bad, even if perhaps you could make a better version of it for him. But it's a very bad thing, because if we are the baby and the super intelligence becomes our mother, that means that the super intelligence has a goal of forming us, of developing us to becoming more like them. Okay, that is a very, very strong intent. Yes, of course, in the West in particular.
Do you not want to have an infinitely powerful mother, Gator, that will always be stronger than you?
Oh, God. Oh,
what
Lord.
more could you want?
Even if you just look at the majority of comedy throughout history, it has been involving people who find their mothers to be the most neurotic individuals that they know, and the mother comes in and causes chaos during any particular family event.
Greek TV has a genre around the mother-in-law, which is, I believe, one of the many series that rotates around that plot point is called Seven Deadly Mothers-in-Law. And much enjoyment is going to be. But what I tweeted about that clip, I believe, is that I was never terrified of AI until I heard this. This was the first time somebody. No, that's not actually what I said. But this could turn me. My optimism about AI could actually start to depart, and you'll start hearing me talk like.
Just Bernie. Thinking about a super intelligent mother just coming in and getting into all your affairs.
Yes. With her boot on your face forever.
How come you never call?
What's interesting is, but what's interesting is, if you heard the last bit of what Bernie said, is how long will these tech oligarchs go against the legislation by the state, right? Okay, so what are we after here? We want to bring all of these disparate and competing intelligences together into one big one, right? And if anybody thinks that they're going to stop the intelligence agencies from, racing with this stuff, wake up, because you're sleeping. And for the rest of us, right, what this means is a monopoly, right? That's how you get to the one big one that is uncontested, is by consolidating. And the only thing that can consolidate stuff at that level is men with guns, aka the government. So
a lot of monopolies
while these two people might be saying,
a lot of monopolies that do form exist as and arise as a result of government intervention in the market that they exist in. It is very difficult in general to have a monopoly form when there is what we'll call, laissez-faire competition, right? It's very difficult. Correct. There is always government involvement somewhere that is causing a particular firm to gain monopolistic advantage.
Correct. So while what those two people are talking about might sound like it is in contrast, in fact, they're complementary, because what you're going to get is Sanders pushing laws for the AIs to be controlled by the government.
That's where we're moving. He goes further, so we're getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. Which in turn will make them act like a single big one, which is what Hinton is talking about. So yeah, no, this is fucking scary.
Have on our economy and the lives of working people. The report that I released last month found that AI, automation, and robotics could replace nearly 100 million jobs in America over the next decade, including 40% of registered nurses, 47% of truck drivers, 64% of accountants, 65% of teaching assistants, and 89% of fast food workers, among many other occupations that will be hit hard by AI and robotics. Now, Elon Musk recently said that, quote, AI and robots will replace all jobs. Working will be optional, end quote. Bill Gates predicted that humans, quote, won't be needed for most things, end quote. Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, warned that AI could lead to the loss of half of all entry-level white-collar jobs. If AI and robotics eliminate millions of jobs and create massive unemployment, how will people survive if they have no income? How do they feed their families or pay for housing or health care? Is government doing anything now?
Now, if you take my regular cynical view here, he's quoting all of the big players and their statements about how many jobs could be lost and all these other things. Those are the very people I assert are most likely to want regulation as a rent-seeking behavior, that they are engaging in it in order to maintain their market position, and he is eating it up in this particular case from my general view.
Correct. By the way, I sent you another clip. It's not a clip. It's a video, but specifically I sent it to you for a clip from a 1977. Sorry. Pause it. Inside it embeds a clip from a 1977 BBC documentary called "Now the Chips Are Down." If you can go to minute 5 second 30, like 5:32, let's say, and play from there. I was shocked. I saw this recently, and I had no idea how similar the talking points are. I think you'll be shocked. But if you can get to 5:30 or so.
To build this, we'll be condemning a generation to unemployment. And if our industry employs so few people to generate wealth, how do we share the money out? Will we become a divided nation of the very rich and the very poor? Could we automate rapidly, even if we wanted to? Would the unions let it happen? Most unionists would hold the view that widespread automation is wrong, that the social pain would be too great.
I think it may be necessary for individual nation states to make clear decisions about what kind of societal development they want, and if necessary, be prepared to protect themselves from the ruthless introduction of this kind of equipment by the multinational corporations. Because in my view, it is spurious to suggest that the introduction of this kind of equipment enhances and improves the quality of life automatically. It may improve the profit for big multinational corporations, but it's going to cause massive problems in this country. And if necessary, we should protect ourselves against the introduction of that kind of equipment.
The BBC documentary is still...
Yeah, and we've touched on this in the past, and you know, of course, I'm the one who brings...
This was released yesterday, right, by the Bernie Sanders campaign, and you wouldn't blink.
Right. We've touched on this in the past, and that it's been my general position that there is a lot of room for optimism, and there is a lot of growing pains involved that is room for, let's say, pessimism. I'm not the Chicken Little saying the sky is falling or a doomer, broadly speaking. Of course, there are certain situations that I can hypothesize that could get out of control, that could, you know, maybe be devastating to a certain degree. But one conversation that you and I had with regards to this, I mentioned and you agreed that despite the long-term horizon for these situations like this documentary was expressing, despite the long-term horizons being profitable for basically everyone, and that the technology that is being introduced expands the wealth of the people engaging in society, that there are still short-term disruptions that should not be ignored, because there are displaced workers in a short-term situation who do not necessarily have an immediate idea of what they can pivot to in order to replace the job that they lost. And so there is something to care about, but typically on the longest term horizon, these situations usually are all for the positive.
I think it's, I don't know, to me, I don't know if it was impactful for you or the other people who are on stage right now, but for me, it just hit me so hard because, I mean, these are not just like similar arguments or like, you know, somewhat sort of, you know, conforming to a pattern. These are the same arguments, right? In 1977.
I enjoy this particular example, but to me, I've seen it a whole bunch of times. Like, so I'm familiar with this. That's why I'm not as surprised. Like, it's like, yeah.
I knew this was happening, you know, and you can go back to the Luddites and whatever, but like, I didn't realize that in
there's a Malthusian recurrence. There's a Malthusian type of recurrence that goes on throughout, you know, several hundred years of just people assuming that at the rate that we're consuming XYZ, the rate that we're doing producing XYZ, that we will run out of, you know, ABC. And like, it's just there's a recurrence of the same types of concerns that don't typically pan out. That doesn't mean someday, you know, they will. They say the sun will die out someday, right? So our consumption of the sun is going to cause the sun to
maybe they think we're right after all. Yes.
Right. So, you know, there is always the possibility that something one of these people says will have some grain of truth at some point in time. But when they are making these statements and sounding the alarm, they are usually not giving deference to the things that have repeatedly shown them wrong.
Well, those things are always the same, which is that they make a classic error, right? Which is to consider the economy a zero-sum game, which is that, you know, there are $100 of commerce, right? And they're going to go either here or there. And if, you know, this new machine is replacing workers, then those workers obviously are not going to find anything else to do. So, like the guy said, we are condemning a whole generation to unemployment, which, to my understanding, never happened. All right. But it's the inability to consider the new. And I actually had a very interesting, I mean, idiotic, but interesting to me in a meta way, argument with somebody on Twitter who said something to the effect of like, you know, well, I've never seen anything like this before, so this is why I'm ruling it out. And I'm like, so you are ruling out novel stimuli, which you've seen a ton of in your life, right? You're operating the assumption that the only thing that you'll ever see is the things you've seen already, which is, when I put it that way, pretty ridiculous. Yeah. So I don't know. It's fascinating because obviously this sort of rhetoric has a business model to it, right? Like it keeps coming back. People keep doing it, and they don't seem to be like punished for it or whatever. They seem to be coming out ahead. But whatever that business model is, it doesn't correlate with that rhetoric coming true. It's more about speaking to some sort of, I don't know, angst or stress or concern or whatever.
Politics itself is a very profitable enterprise. So there is an incentive for people to find a problem and decry it and offer themselves as the solution.
Become the speaker. Yes.
To prepare for this potential economic disaster. Further, what impact will AI have on our democracy? At a time when the foundations of democracy are under attack here in the United States and throughout the world, will AI and robotics help make us become a freer, more democratic society? Or will it give even more power to the oligarchs who control the technology? Will AI result in a massive invasion of our privacy and our civil liberties? Larry Ellison, the second richest person on earth, predicted an AI-powered surveillance state where, quote, citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that is going on, end of quote. This is the second wealthiest guy on earth investing hundreds of billions in AI. Are we reaching the stage where every phone call that we make, every email and text that we send, every bit of research we do on the internet will be available to the owners of AI?
Now, this is
Save me from this fucking please.
This is a little bit of a mixed bag here, because I agree there are significant privacy concerns, and I hear people make statements about the Panopticon. You and I have referred to the Panopticon several times in the past, and I hear people like Larry Ellison promoting the Panopticon as a perfectly wonderful model of the future that we will be going to. And that does, of course, concern me. But St. Bernard here seems to be primarily concerned specifically with, like, let's say, Jeff Bezos being able to see the things that you purchased on Amazon, as opposed to, and I'm going to quickly jump here to an article that I didn't think we would get to here, but actually fits right in the dead center with this. Microsoft gave FBI keys to unlocked encrypted data, exposing major privacy flaw. Early last year, the FBI served Microsoft with a search warrant, asking it to provide recovery keys to unlock encrypted data stored on 3 laptops. Federal investigators in Guam believe the devices held evidence that would help prove individuals handling the island's COVID unemployment assistance program were part of a plot to steal funds. The data was protected by BitLocker, software that's automatically enabled on many modern Windows PCs to safeguard all the data on the computer's hard drive. BitLocker scrambles the data so that only those with the key to decode it. So if you think that happens when it's on your machine, it is an encrypted technology, and Microsoft just happens to have the keys to unlock it, you can also imagine the same thing happening when the AI systems have gathered and collected all of your data that the government can then subpoena. And it's the government who's doing the exposure of the things that you were up to. It's not Jeff Bezos tweeting out that I purchased something embarrassing.
He just said, "Oh my God, all our phone calls and all our transactions are going to be available."
Which the NSA has already been doing.
Which is true. It's just factual. What the fuck are you talking about? You've probably voted for those laws. Like,
do you want Elon Musk? Do you want Elon Musk to know what you were thinking last night?
Oh, but I would want John Biden or whatever. Jesus, Hunter Biden, the next Democratic candidate probably. Like that's the fucking idiocy of it all. It's like, you know, I mean, I feel like 50% of concerns about AI are things that are already happening. I remember Sam Harris saying, you know, well, with AI, like, how could you trust scientific journals anymore? It's like,
spying on Americans is the government's job. It's not Jeff Bezos.
But you know, it's like, oh, you know, we won't be able to trust images. Yeah, well, yeah, the government has been able to falsify images for a long time. It's just now that everybody can do it, you're concerned, right? Pharma has been able to fake papers for a long time, but now that like the hoi polloi can do it, oh, you know, that's a problem. Yeah, no, the problem is your system is broken and it's leaky. And so long as the people who, you know, the leaks were like high enough that the only people who could exploit them were part of an inner group, that's okay. But when the leaks go, you know, what the cracks are like accessible by the hoi polloi, then you're suddenly concerned. That's not how it works.
Further?
In fact, if I could say, I am... Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, in fact, if I could say, like, I think making this kind of capability and technology, like, let's say falsify images or video or whatever, available to the masses is the, pardon my French, vaccine for the public to get used to the idea that these things cannot be trusted, and therefore we move on, right? We find more trustworthy things, trustworthy information, right? And therefore that ruins the ability to exploit this hole for everybody.
The word
right?
trust the word trust has always been an anathema to me. When Sam Harris or people like Sam Harris panic with the fake news that they think, or their version of fake news that they see in the environment, they panic because their entire system of knowledge was based off of trusting someone else's communication. And when you take that away from them, they have no ability to navigate the world, which I can understand the fear in that. But for me, and maybe I'm you know, unique in this sense, I've been acting that way for the last 20 years. So, you know, it's like I don't, if I tentatively accept something as true, I'm not shocked to find out later that it was wrong. Like,
well, here's the thing, and I've been able to get AIs to trust to agree with me on this. Like, it's like they're missing a dimension, right? You get information and you get it from a lot of sources. You have to add an additional record in every piece of information. You know, such and such said this, okay, and the additional record is, and the motivation of such and such are those, right? There's no, like, when people say like, oh, you know, this is objective news, you know, this is, you know, like coming out from like the highest quality sources or whatever, like, lose that notion. Just forget it. Just, you will be better off if you never had the concept that there is information that can come from on high and is assumed correct, right? It might be correct if they've gained your trust and you say, I trust these people because they've been proven to me over and over again as reliable, right? And we'll see for the future, right? When they're not any longer proved reliable, I'll change my view. That's one thing. But to just have a class of informational sources that just go in through the back door and are assumed correct in your analysis, you're fucked. I'm sorry, like, it's over. Anyway, sorry.
And so I do generally agree with the sentiment that you expressed at the beginning there, which is that the more people come across the ubiquitous nature of fake videos or fake images or completely AI constructed stories that are full of hallucinations or all hallucination, the less that they will have confidence in the information that comes across their face, which hopefully, but not assuredly, makes them more discerning in the information that they accept. Now, unfortunately, what's going to happen is you will find that it is going to be them still looking for people to give them a signal, and that there's going to be a lot of increasing consolidation in sort of holes of influence or culture, where there is going to be a place that they go to be told what they're allowed to think about it. And there's going to be signaling that those influencers give, like, don't be tricked, don't be duped. And they're going to go, oh no, I don't want to be duped. Please tell me what I'm supposed to take away from this. And then they're going to get a list of things that they're supposed to take away from it. So it's going to be more concentrated propaganda on that way. Yeah. But some some will still find a way to actually discern where they are more independently.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to continue here with St. Bernard.
Further, could AI literally redefine, and this is almost crazy stuff, very unimaginable, but could AI literally redefine what it means to be a human being? Who we are and how we develop emotionally and intellectually is highly dependent upon our relationships with other human beings. Our parents, of course, our family, teachers, lovers, friends, and co-workers. To quote the 17th century poet John Donne, you'll remember this poem, quote, "No man is an island unto himself," end quote. The human beings with whom we interact help shape us to become, for better or for worse, the people we are. But AI is in the process of changing that. According to a recent poll by Common Sense Media, 72% of U.S. teenagers say they have used AI for companionship, and more than half of them do so regularly. What does it mean? I want you to think about this. What does it mean for young people to form friendships with AI and become increasingly isolated from other human beings, spend an enormous amount of time on their screens talking to AI characters?
Now, if we stopped right there and assumed that this wasn't a broader conversation about the need for massive legislation to control this, I would feel very in line and fine with what St. Bernard here is saying, that yes, those are real concerns that people should have, because during significant development periods of people's lives, you don't necessarily want your child to have one of its most important relationships be to a robot, particularly the earliest versions of these robots, right? We don't want that necessarily to be the case, and that children who are more socially isolated from their actual human cohort are more susceptible and at risk to developing entanglements with these devices that are otherwise unadvised and unhealthy. Totally on board. But when you take it in the concept of that's why the federal government needs to do something, you lose me there. You lose me there pretty quickly.
Well, again, much like a 3D printer case, these people are in a mind warp where legislating something makes it true. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
What happens when millions around the world seek emotional support from a machine? What is the long-term impact upon our humanity when our most important relationships are not with other human beings?
Now, I want to expand on that for a second, which is that while there is absolutely 100% a very important novel characteristic to this AI problem, humans have been giving emotional relationships to inanimate objects or parasocial pathology like behavior for years. That's what television is, right? That when during the 50s and on, where there were only 3 to 4 networks, you would have entire lives of regular people formed around those parasocial events. They would be some simultaneously social and isolating at the same time. You would be in your house watching the same exact thing as someone else across the country, having an emotional connection to the entertainment that you were being provided of a very similar nature that was not strictly human to human sociology. It was, a manufactured version of life provided to you as part of entertainment. So while there is a absolutely important, significant, novel aspect to the LLMs, the concept is not new. Like the generic version of this concept is not new. And that, people would become emotionally invested to characters all the time.
Or you can have pet ownership, people sort of having, emotional relationships with non-human purchasable, friends.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like, I don't know.
I will say if my cat starts giving me life advice, I will get really concerned.
I don't know. Maybe he knows something.
Further, what impact is AI having on our environment? AI data centers require a massive, huge amount of electricity and water. A relatively small AI data center can consume more electricity than 80,000 homes. A large one, like the $165 billion data center that OpenAI and Oracle are building in Abilene, Texas, will use as much electricity as 750,000 homes, one data center. Meta is building a data center in Louisiana, the size of Manhattan, that will use as much electricity as 1,200,000 homes. In community after community, Americans are fighting back against data centers being built by some of the largest and most powerful corporations in the world. They are opposing the destruction of their local environment, soaring electric bills, and the diversion of scarce water supplies. Nationally, how will continued construction of AI data centers impact our environment? Further, how will AI and robotics impact foreign policy and warfare? Well, maybe.
All right, Alex, you know more about the energy version of this topic than I do. So is there anything that he said on there that is sort of like a wives' tale being passed around that's skewed, or was his presentation there largely accurate?
So I want to tell you about the water part, because it is, we actually have the receipts. So I sent you a tweet by this guy called Andy Masley. I will read you the tweet, and you will understand what I mean. He says, "This is the single most massive factual error in a major book I've ever personally noticed on my own, and I think I'm the first person to notice it. Empire of AI asserts that a data center is using 1,000 times as much water as a city. In reality, it is 22% of the city's water." Apparently, there was some unit conversion error in that book, which many people have read. That was what is this, like 3 orders plus 3.5 orders of magnitude?
Well, decimal points.
Happens, Yeah. So it was 22% instead of 1,000x, right? What is that? 1,000,000%? 100,000%?
Yeah.
Anyway, that sort of, so that sort of water usage thing just keeps going and going, and it's just not a thing. But I will tell you about the electricity, which is true that they use a lot of electricity. But again, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that electrons are not particularly rare, and we can move them in all sorts of ways. In fact, the problem that they're using a lot of electricity is not lost on the makers of data centers, particularly because they want the electricity. Mm-hmm. So the way that data centers are moving is that they are building the power stations with the data centers off grid, as they call it.
We have actually something from Trump coming up that actually touches on that briefly.
Yeah, so Microsoft moved to restart a 3 Mile Island nuclear station, for example. There's others along the same lines. Elon, I think, had bought like a gas power station from somewhere else in the world to be disassembled and moved to Memphis. But long story short, like, yes, they need power and they have to deal with that. And of course, they're not going to like fucking brown out, half of Tennessee to do it. they're going to find the power. And they're finding the power. And, you know, I don't know, like I haven't heard about those wide-ranging blackouts. So whatever, this is a problem solving itself, and people are just hyperventilating because, I don't know, somebody's just happy somewhere, and oh my God, they're making money. And I swear to God, whenever I hear Sanders talk about, you know, people making money, I just get this vibe. I don't get it from everybody. I get it specifically from him, that he's just aggrieved that it's them and not him. His main problem is that, like, you know, those other people are making money, and that's just terrible.
I'm usually very disgruntled about that fact. Why can't I make all the money and them get nothing?
That's right.
But the reality is that
you, as opposed to Sanders, don't want to
in the midst of the 20.
No, that's true. I would just like one of my biggest conspiracy theories is that I'm actually the wealthiest person in the world, but my money was all stolen from me, and I'm being tricked and gaslighted into having to earn my money back bit by bit.
Oh, no. Sorry, go ahead with the clip. Sorry.
21st century governments have not yet created a mechanism for solving international or internal disputes without armed conflict. We're seeing terrible wars taking place right now. Nonetheless, government leaders are often hesitant about going to war because of their fear of public reaction to the loss of life. No politician wants to go before his or her people and say, oh, sorry, we've lost thousands of dollars of young men and women. But what happens when you have robots replacing human beings in the act of warfare, when you have robot armies? What does the future look like?
Now imagine, Alex, if those robots, evolved off of land and became airborne. What would happen?
Oh, we could make that illegal, though. You know, motors and stuff. We've gone over this, Gator.
Okay. Well, all right. I'm just curious to see what would happen if we perhaps had some, things that would drone on and on.
It's yet
in
another
the sky.
thing that you can do. It's yet another thing that you can do with motors and a control board. It could be a 3D printer or a drone.
Millions of robot soldiers replace human beings. Will leaders be more likely to engage in war or threaten military action if they don't have to worry about loss of life? Will there be literally an arms race in robots? So you can see country fighting country, not with their own human beings, not with their own soldiers, but with robots.
Now, I do appreciate the fact that he's very consistent in pronouncing robot as robot. That does make me very charmed. By this
Gator,
speech. What about the robots?
Just imagine the horror that countries engage in a robot arms race, but like literally robot arms.
There you go.
Racing.
Yes.
And
that's how we settle our disagreements from now on.
It's just weird to me that he's like, what if we don't really kill people anymore in wars, guys? What happens then? What happens if Putin and Zelensky can just get all the robots in the valley and just let them fucking go?
There was an aspect to this.
Standing last.
There was an aspect of this that I talked about with Steve Patterson a couple of years back, which was there's a large number of people already who are in the AI world who are starting to believe that these entities are deserving of rights, that to some degree they have a soul, things like that. And as time goes forward and they become more increasingly good at mimicking human nature or human empathy and things like that, the average person is going to feel more passionate about them having what the rationalists like to always call qualia, meaning that there is some sort of subjective experience that these things are having, and that it is wrong to harm them. It would become sort of an analog to animal rights sort of ideas, where torturing something that can show you in some ways that it's experiencing pain would become bad. So then what happens when you have someone who is murdering millions of robots, but doesn't believe that they are worthy of those rights, and not necessarily the problem of killing the robots, but the problem of the response from people who believe that that is like something akin to a Holocaust.
Yep, you can get arrested for turning on and off your light switch too fast, really. But on a similarly related note, though slightly grim, we were joking with a friend, and you'll see what kind of friends I have once I explain that. Well, we were exploring a scenario to begin with where the state can mandate the system prompts of your LLMs, which unfortunately, I mean, I'm not even concerned about putting this in the ether because let's face it, like this is just
they've already thought of
begging to happen. Like, it's just it can't, they can't not have thought of this, and it's terrible because it basically provides a highway between the wordiest of word cells that are working in a congressional office as you know staffers, right, and our reality.
The system prompts, for those who aren't familiar, the system prompts are basically the highest level of prompts. So when you go to ChatGPT or something like that and you ask it to do something or give you an explanation for something, that's called a prompt. But there is a higher level version that is set by the provider of this experience for you. And usually these are opaque. You don't see what the words are or the instructions are. They're happening in the background in the LLM before your instructions get there. So these system prompts are something that are just basically asking, like Alex was saying, for the government to get involved and start specifying what these system prompts must or must not say.
Right. And then we were joking that, of course, this is going to start by talking about some uncontroversial topic, right? Like, for example, if we've talked about suicide and stuff that is related to AI, so you could trivially imagine a law that is being written as we speak, probably, right? That, you know, the AIs have to have language in their system prompts to detect conversations that are about that topic and sort of, I don't know, you know, take appropriate action. However, if you're in Canada, that will probably be something like Clippy showing up and saying, "Grim Clippy."
Would you like me to schedule? Would you like me to schedule an appointment?
Would you exactly? Let's say you're considering suicide. Would you like to consider MAID? Anyway,
that's very morbid, but also that, you know, that's here. I'm going to take an opportunity to use the new feature here. I did get a duck sound for you now.
Excellent. But that said, I'm just saying, like, we are in a weird state where, you know, suddenly we're starting to feel a lot of compassion for the machines or whatever. I'm not there yet. Again, I continue to believe consciousness is high up. But I'm preparing for the moment where I have to use this argument. You know, at the same time, we are also diminishing the compassion we have for other human beings. So I don't know where this goes, Gator. Maybe it's a good thing.
Well, we're going to finish out here his spiel, because this is basically his entire push right now. It's one of his larger focuses, is my understanding, because I've just seen him posting about it incessantly lately.
Further, and needless to say, of some consequence, is AI an existential threat to human control over the planet? Now, some of us remember the scene, and I know there have been different movies making the same point, but some of us remember that scene in that great 1968 science fiction film, 2001, A Space Odyssey, in which HAL, the super intelligent computer that controlled the spaceship, rebels against its human masters. Today, as AI makes rapid progress, Dr. Geoffrey Hinton recently told me that it was only a matter of time before AI becomes smarter than human beings. Now, what's the impact of that? Does that raise?
Well, there's smarter to worry about. There's also more capable, but also dumber. Like that's also a concern. If you give the dumbest thing that you've ever created an immense amount of power to do dumb things, that is another risk that in some ways could be larger than the smartest machine that you ever devised doing the same thing. Right? It's the power really that is the problem.
we came up with the IQ scale, and I think we are just like destroying ourselves with that idea. I mean, I've heard rationalists saying like, "Oh, it's going to have 10,000 IQ points." You know what I hear is like, you think your wife is an 8. Well, the AI is going to be like a 20,000. And it's like, okay, but what does that mean? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's like these are scales that are meant for people, and they capture a proxy that transfers to a human architecture to mean something. It doesn't mean that a calculator, because it can calculate a lot faster than me, is smarter than me. It's a different thing. Anyway, yeah, it's I don't know, man. Like, look, on the one hand, I have to say I'm very happy that Senator Sanders is picking up this mantle, because now we all will be able to say, yeah, that's what Bernie Sanders thinks. You're welcome to line up with him. But joking aside, yeah, go ahead.
No. I was just queuing it up. I didn't mean to actually start it yet. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, like, yeah, we'll be. On the other hand, like, there are real issues there. It just, I think you can even hear the contradiction in what he's trying to put together here, which is like, the AI, is not gonna be under human control, or it's rebelling against its human masters, so therefore we must legislate. Like, what are you? And I mean, to me, this all stacks up, by the way, with the other panic on the other side, which is like, this is a bubble. So if you're keeping track from home, the AI is both a hoax and is going to kill us all. Tune in again tomorrow.
I can make both those ends meet by going, if there's a current short-term AI bubble that could lead to possible future consolidation and a monopolistic control over the super intelligence.
Right, but that requires working technology. We agree, like that this is legit, actual world-changing stuff.
Sure,
okay.
Absolutely.
AI and robotics are revolutionary technologies that will bring about an unprecedented transformation of society. Will these changes be positive and improve life for ordinary Americans, or will they be disastrous? In my view, Congress must act now. We've got to start answering these questions and other questions. We need to have a national discussion. This is a huge issue. And maybe the people on top, the billionaires who control the technology, want us to ignore it. But for the future of our world, our kids, the environment, etc., this is an issue that cannot be ignored. So
I still love the idea here that the solution is to gather, the 538 dumbest people you've ever met, and then another chamber of the 100 dumbest people you've ever met, put them together in the rooms to figure out how to solve this problem. That's my favorite proposal for this.
We need to have a conversation, as they like to say in Washington.
We're worried about the super intelligence, so let's get the super unintelligence to come in and battle it.
Right. That's right. I mean, I had a similar form of this argument, which said, we are worried about, the super agency of super intelligence. So we are suggesting to make a super agency to control it.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's gonna turn out super well, guys. Yeah. Congratulations. You're almost there, except you're missing it right at the last point where
we're gonna transition. This one's also going to be clip heavy. This is sometimes we do clip heavy shows, sometimes we don't. This one's going to be clip heavy too. But this one I think requires us to pay attention to it because in many ways this was our fearless leader's Gettysburg Address. Donald Trump recently appeared in Davos in front of the World Economic Forum and gave an oration that will stand the test of time. You should hear the eloquence, Alex, that was sprinkled throughout this speech.
Like a year and 1 month. But it's happened very quickly. This afternoon, I want to discuss how we have achieved this economic miracle, how we intend to raise living standards for our citizens to levels never seen before, and perhaps how you too and the places where you come from can do much better by following what we're doing, because certain places in Europe are not even recognizable, frankly, anymore. They're not recognizable. And we can argue about it, but there's no argument. Friends come back from different places. I don't want to insult anybody, and say, I don't recognize it. And that's not in a positive way. That's in a very negative.
So right off the bat, Alex, you could see he was in his prime oratory stance. That's how he began his speech, Alex.
Yeah, no, he's I don't know what to tell you.
There's a lot in here though, man. Oh boy, is this action packed. And I tried to excerpt I tried to make this concise, so none of these clips should last too long, but they are packed with some interesting statements and interesting expressions.
Under Sleepy Joe Biden, new domestic oil and gas leases fell by 95%. Think of that. Then they wonder, why was gasoline going up so fast? The gasoline actually topped $5 a gallon, and some places $7 a gallon, and more than 100 major power plants were violently shut down by incompetent people that had no idea what the hell they were doing. Under my leadership, U.S. natural gas production is at an all-time high by far. U.S. oil production is up by 730,000 barrels a day, and last week we picked up 50 million barrels from Venezuela alone. Venezuela has been an amazing place for so many years, but then they went bad with their policies. 20 years ago it was a great country, and now it's got problems, but we're helping them. And those 50 million barrels, we're going to be splitting up with them, and they'll be making more money than they've made in a long time. Venezuela is going to do fantastically well. We appreciate all of the cooperation we've been giving. We've been giving great cooperation. Once the attack ended, and they said, let's make a deal. More people should do that.
Do you agree, Alex, that after the attack ended, they were very cooperative?
I thought it was a law enforcement action. I didn't think there was any sort of attack per se, right?
Whatever. Well, you know.
By the way, he said it was a great country 20 years ago, right?
Time is all running together. It's imaginary as a concept. 20 years.
Sure, but I mean,
40 years.
I'm just going to be
numbers we've never seen before.
Yeah, tremendous. I just want to be a little pedantic and say that the president of and leader of Venezuela in 2005 was, of course, Hugo Chavez. Just
so keep that idea in your head of being pedantic, because there is a specific part of being pedantic that I think proves that the president listens to our show here, because he adopts a piece of pedantry that you have echoed in the past. And let me know when you catch it, and if you miss it, I will point it out to you.
Is doing. I read recently an article in the Wall Street Journal that China's creating so much energy, and they are. I got to hand it to them. But we're creating as much or more, and we're letting them do that. I'm very proud of it. It was my idea. I said, you can't create this much energy. We needed more than double the energy currently in the country just to take care of the AI plants. And I said, we can't do that. We have an old grid system. And I came up with the idea, you people are brilliant. You have a lot of money. Let's see what you can do. You can build your own electric generating plants. And they looked at me. They didn't believe me. All of the names that are, I think, in the room right now, if you want to know the truth, they didn't believe it. And I said, no, you can't. They came back 2 weeks and they didn't have the plant. They said, we thought you were kidding. I said, no, not only am I not kidding, you're going to have your approvals within 2 weeks. I always say nuclear will take 3 weeks. But most aren't going that. They're going oil and gas. They're even going.
So that was his idea, Alex. And they couldn't believe it. that he told them that they were all smart, and they can now do it. So that actually references the building of the power plants in line with the next to the AI centers that Bernard was referencing.
Yeah. You see, they were just having a crisis in their self-belief. All they needed was somebody to believe in them. And that somebody was not.
I'm very glad that he has ideas like that. Why don't you just use your intelligence and do it?
Oh, I use my intelligence agencies for everything.
In fact,
where's the duck? Come on.
There you go. Electricity prices have soared 139%. There are windmills all over Europe. There are windmills all over the place, and they are losers. One thing I've noticed is that the more windmills a country has, the more money that country loses, and the worse that country is doing. China makes almost all of the windmills, and yet I haven't been able to find any wind farms in China. Did you ever think of that? It's a good way of looking at it. They're smart. China is very smart. They make them, they sell them for a fortune. They sell them to the stupid people that buy them, but they don't use them themselves. They put up a couple of big wind farms, but they don't use them. They just put them up to show people what they could look like. They don't spin. They don't do anything. They use a thing called coal mostly. But China goes with the coal. They go with oil and gas. They're starting to look at nuclear a little bit. And they're doing just fine. They make a fortune selling the windmills, though. And I think really that's one that they wouldn't be surprised if it stopped. They are shocked that it continues to go. They're very friendly with me. They're shocked that people continue to buy those damn things. They killed the birds. They ruin your landscapes. Other than that, I think they're fabulous, by the way.
Alex, do you know how hard this was to procure? Because I couldn't find the appropriate places to cut these things, but the way that he just keeps me, like, he's just insulting everybody. They sell them to stupid people. Like,
by the way, this is Wikipedia, so if somebody can just prove me wrong, fine. I'll take the slap. But it's such a ridiculous number that even if they're wrong by like a multiple of 2 or 3, it's still a ridiculous number. It says in 2021, China was responsible for almost 70% of new wind installed capacity, while the United States accounted for 14% and Brazil at 7%. Do you understand?
Are you saying
they're not making any wind farms, except they're installing 70% of all new wind capacity on the planet?
Are you saying that this expertly crafted speech that the president procured for this event has some misstatements and inaccuracies?
I like to think that he scribbled it on a napkin somewhere, and it's really his
I actually
3-year-old self. But I increasingly fear that there is no napkin.
I actually think what happens is that we're looking at a speech that was written that is 5 minutes long, that he's reading for the first time as it comes up on the prompter, and that he actually just stops mid-sentence and carries on with whatever the subject was, and he prattles on with whatever's in his mind.
I mean, in that sense, it's like it's just like a jazz tablature. It's like, we're going to key of C now. Go for it. And then we're gonna do we're gonna change it to like 5/8 at that point, and you can like go back to. It's like
exactly
solo. It's got solo segments, and you can just go with it.
Strong allies, not seriously weakened ones. We want Europe to be strong. Ultimately, these are matters of national security, and perhaps no current issue makes the situation more clear than what's currently going on with Greenland. Would you like me to say a few words of Greenland? No. I'm going to leave it out of the speech, but I think I would have been reviewed very negatively. I have tremendous respect for both the people of Greenland and the people of Denmark, tremendous respect. But every NATO ally has an obligation to be able to defend their own territory, And the fact is, no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand. I think they found that out 2 weeks ago in Venezuela. We saw this in World War II, when Denmark fell to Germany after just 6 hours of fighting and was totally unable to defend either itself or Greenland. So the United States was then compelled, we did it, we felt an obligation to do it, to send our own forces to hold the Greenland territory, and hold it we did at great cost and expense. They didn't have a chance of getting on it, and they tried. Denmark knows that. We literally set up bases on Greenland for Denmark. We fought for Denmark. We weren't fighting for anyone else. We were fighting to save it for Denmark. Big, beautiful piece of ice. It's hard to call it land. It's a big piece of ice. But we saved Greenland and successfully prevented our enemies from gaining a foothold in our hemisphere. So we did it for ourselves also. And then after the war, which we won it big. Without us, right now you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps. After the war,
including
we gave Greenland back
Japanese.
To Denmark. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it. But we gave it back. But how ungrateful are they now?
So, you understand, we defended Greenland for Denmark. Okay, also a little bit or a lot for ourselves, too. But, for Denmark. And then we gave it back to him, and that was stupid.
So, can I tell you what I've heard about the settlement of the topic, or do you want to continue with the...
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir. We have plenty more clips because, oh my God, does he continue with his Festivus rants, and there's more important things to
Gator, I'm going to require... what is the... what do you call it in America where when you have like a job that like is taking a toll on your health and you get extra pay? That. I need it.
All right. Okay.
I require you to double my salary. Sorry.
All right, sir. Will do.
So what I hear, and it could be not what happens, but the settlement is supposed to be because he said they figured something out about Greenland and he was not going to tariff everybody. I don't know. Maybe he's tweeted while we're talking and he's going to tariff them again. But last I heard, he wasn't going to tariff everybody. What I hear, the outline of the deal that's been agreed, and let's put an asterisk on the word agreed, is for a Cyprus-style deal where the U.S. gets some sort of bases with a wider area around them, having full sovereignty over those sort of patches of Greenland, but not necessarily taking over, cities or the wide expanse or whatever. And when I say Cyprus style, is everybody thinks that Cyprus is split between the Republic of Cyprus, which is kind of Greek dominated, and the and Turkey, that has also declared a unrecognized statelet. But 6% of Cyprus actually belongs to Britain, the UK. So they have two bases, one in Akrotiri and one at Vekelia. And they are sovereign bases, basically like Gibraltar, but much bigger and on Cyprus. So that's kind of the model that's being discussed. When I say put an asterisk on agreed, by the way, the joke of all this is that the discussion was between Trump and Mark Rutte, who is the former prime minister of the Netherlands, which you might notice is not Denmark, and currently the head of NATO, which is a military alliance mostly militarized by the United States. And the Danes are like, excuse me, we haven't been consulted about this at all. Anyway, that's where we are.
Well, he may address that coming up.
So now our country and the world face much greater risks than it did ever before because of missiles, because of nuclear, because of weapons of warfare that I can't even talk about. 2 weeks ago, they saw weapons that nobody ever heard of. They weren't able to fire one shot at us. They said, what happened? Everything was discombobulated. They said, we've got them in our sights. Press the trigger, and nothing happened. No anti-aircraft missiles went up. There was one that went up about 30 feet and crashed down right next to the people that sent it. They said, what the hell is going on? Those defensive systems were made by Russia and by China. So they're going to go back to the drawing boards, I guess. Greenland is a vast, almost entirely uninhabited and undeveloped territory. It's sitting undefended in a key strategic location between the United States, Russia, and China. That's exactly where it is, right smack in the middle. Wasn't important nearly when we gave it back. You know, when we gave it back, it wasn't the same as it is now. It's not important for any other reason, you know, everyone talks about the minerals. There's so many places. There's no rare earth. No such thing as rare earth. There's rare processing. But there's so much rare earth.
There's your pedantic moment, Alex, that Trump is proof Trump has listened to our show. You have specified that is the processing, not the earth that is rare.
Yep.
And this to get to this rare earth, you got to go through hundreds of feet of ice. That's not the reason we need it. We need it for strategic national security and international security. This enormous unsecured island is actually part of North America, on the northern frontier of the Western Hemisphere. That's our territory. It is therefore a core national security interest of the United States of America. And in fact, it's been our policy for hundreds of years to prevent outside threats from entering our hemisphere, and we've done it very successfully. We've never been stronger than we are now. That's why American presidents have sought to purchase Greenland for nearly 2 centuries. You know, for 2 centuries they've been trying to do it. They should have kept it after World War II, but they had a different president. That's all right. People think differently. But this would not be a threat to NATO. This would greatly enhance the security of the entire alliance, the NATO alliance. The United States is treated very unfairly by NATO. I want to tell you that. And when you think about it, nobody can dispute it. We give so much and we get so little in return. And I've been a critic of NATO for many years. And yet I've done more to help NATO than any other president by far, than any other person. You wouldn't have NATO if I didn't get involved in my first term. The war with Ukraine is an example. We are thousands of miles away, separated by a giant ocean. It's a war that should have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It was a rigged election. You can't have rigged elections. You need strong borders, strong elections, and ideally a good press. I always say it. Strong borders, strong elections, free, fair elections, and a fair media. The media is terrible. It's very crooked. It's very biased, terrible. But someday it'll straighten out because it's losing all credibility. Think of it, when I win in a landslide, a giant landslide, won all 7 swing states, won the popular vote, won everything, and I only get negative press. That means that it has no credibility. And if they're going to get credibility, they're going to have to be fair. So you need a...
So anyway, Greenland. We have 3 more years.
I think the teleprompter at that point was like, went to like blink, you know, like it was like, you know, large letters like Greenland. Talk about Greenland, damn it.
But that election was stolen from him, and everybody knows it now. You may there might be news now, but
it's breaking news. Trump says he's going to do something.
We fixed it. The strongest border anywhere in the world, and I've now been working on this war for 1 year, during which time I settled 8 other wars. India, Pakistan. I settled other wars that were. Vladimir Putin called me, Armenia, Azerbaijan. He said, I can't believe you settled that one. They were going on for 35 years. I settled it in 1 day. And President Putin called me. He said, I can't believe I worked on that war for 10 years trying to settle it. I couldn't do it. I said, do me a favor, focus on settling your war. Don't worry about that one. What does the United States get out of all of this work, all of this money, other than death, destruction, and massive amounts of cash going to people who don't appreciate what we do? They don't appreciate what we do. I'm talking about NATO, I'm talking about Europe. They have to work on Ukraine. We don't. The United States is very far away. We have a big, beautiful ocean separating us. We have nothing to do with it. Until I came along, NATO was only supposed to pay 2% of GDP, but they weren't paying. Most of the countries weren't paying anything. The United States was paying for virtually 100% of NATO. And I got that stopped. I said, that's not fair. But then more importantly, I got NATO to pay 5%, and now they were paying, and now they are paying. So something nobody said was possible. They said, we will never go up higher than 2%. But they went to 5%, and now they're paying the 5. They didn't pay the 2, and now they're paying the 5. And they're stronger for it, and they have an excellent, by the way, Secretary General, who's possibly in the room. Mark, are you here? Yes, he's here. Hello, Mark. We never asked for anything, and we never got anything. We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force, where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that.
I hope you're reassured there, Alex. We probably won't get anything unless we use excessive strength and force. But I won't.
Look, other than the homage he paid to the room there with Oh Hi Mark, he did also pay a little bit of an homage to Meatloaf with I would do anything for Greenland, but I won't do that.
Nice.
I don't know. This is just wild, man.
I tuned in.
He settled wars between countries he doesn't even know their names of.
I tuned in at I tuned in after it started, like 30 minutes in, and I'm watching this, and he's just going off on these tangents and these grievances and complaining, and I'm like, this is the wildest freaking speech. And so I had to go back through and listen to the entire thing, and that's where I just like, there's so many things to cut out of here, because not only does he switch topics enough to provide discussion, the way that he just explains these scenarios is the most bizarre hour-and-a-half long speech in front of the WEF. Like, this isn't a group of nobodies.
Ball story. So what we have gotten out of NATO is nothing except to protect Europe from the Soviet Union and now Russia. I mean, we've helped them for so many years. We've never gotten anything, except we pay for NATO. And we paid for many years until I came along. We paid for, in my opinion, 100% of NATO because they weren't paying their bills. And all we're asking for is to get Greenland, including right title and ownership, because you need the ownership to defend it. You can't defend it on a lease. Number one, legally it's not defensible that way, totally. And number two, psychologically, who the hell wants to defend a license agreement or a lease, which is a large piece of ice in the middle of the ocean where if there is a war, much of the action will take place on that piece of ice. Think of it. Those missiles would be flying right over the center of that piece of ice. All we want from Denmark for national and international security and to keep our very energetic and dangerous potential enemies at bay is this land on which we're going to build the greatest golden dome ever built. We're building a golden dome that's going to, just by its very nature, going to be defending Canada. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your Prime Minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next.
Now, Alex, I want to see if you are able to procure a list of golden domes to verify that this golden dome will be the greatest golden dome out of all of them. Because I don't have that list prepared at the moment, and I apologize for that oversight.
Well, much like the funding for NATO, which says in his opinion, the U.S. paid for 100% of it. I feel like this is going to fall under subjective opinion. In his opinion, it's going to be the greatest, and that's all that's going to matter. So it doesn't really. There's no. Why even bother, Gator?
I did a lot of big things.
I think that's interesting.
All perfectly.
What's that?
I think it's interesting that he ended up tying it back to the Golden Dome. Don't you think?
Well, I mean, you're definitely correct about this Golden Dome being an important factor of the desire to, acquire Greenland. I don't think that there's any doubt about that whatsoever now. I mean, he said it explicitly himself.
He might be lying, right? Like I'm not saying like trust me because he said it. I'm just saying like it is odd that it keeps coming up, and as time goes by, he narrows down what he's talking about to be explicitly about, effectively this, to the exclusion of other things. He's like, I don't care about the minerals. I care about, okay, maybe there's like some weird thing, but like, why would he could say whatever he wanted. Like nobody gives a shit what reason he cites. But apparently, this is the one he's going for.
I did a lot of big things, all perfectly executed. Everyone was perfectly executed. Somebody told me that, a military expert told me, sir, everything you've done has been perfectly executed. I said, I know.
That one was only 14 seconds. I just really liked that clip.
This guy's been born with like perfect, like the only thing fixed in his world is perfect confidence in himself. That like he's just unable to err.
Well, I mean, other people keep telling him it's not him. It's not him with the confidence. He's a normal.
But if they don't tell him, he'll say, "Oh, you're not grateful." It doesn't the only fixed point around which his epistemology rotates is that he is flawless, right? Others, gravity, laws, whatever.
Any contrary
evidence? It all depends.
To that claim.
No, I mean, in his opinion, he is the greatest. I think that is an objective fact. As close as we can get to one.
But in doing it, I'm helping Europe. I'm helping NATO. And I've until the last few days, when I told them about Iceland, they loved me. They called me daddy, right? The last time. A very smart man said, he's our daddy. He's running it. I was like running it. I went from running it to being a terrible human being. But now what I'm asking for is a piece of ice, cold and poorly located, that can play a vital role in world peace and world protection. It's a very small ask compared to what we have given them for many, many decades. But the problem with NATO is that we'll be there for them 100%. But I'm not sure that they'd be there for us if we gave them the call. Gentlemen, we are being attacked. We're under attack by such and such a nation. I know them all very well. I'm not sure that they'd be there. I know we'd be there for them. I don't know that they'd be there for us. So with all of the money we expend, with all of the blood, sweat, and tears, I don't know that they'd be there for us. They're not there for us on Iceland, that I can tell you. I mean, our stock market took the first dip yesterday because of Iceland.
Now, reflecting back, doing a little callback to our earlier discussion, where you sent the AI scientist who Hinton, who is likening the super AI to our mother. I think this is like a sort of another sort of scenario where a powerful entity is behaving like your mother, which is like, I spent 12 hours in labor with you and you won't even call. Like, that's the type of grievance that he's giving to them right now.
He's also confusing the country he wants to take over, by the way.
I didn't know if he was if he got Greenland and Iceland confused, because he's just been talking about it as a hunk of ice, which I've been joking this whole time is a ruse, like, that he's falling for the ruse. He thinks it's really green over there. I've been joking like that, but I don't know if I didn't know if that's what was
Iceland
happening.
3 times.
Yes, but Iceland
Iceland
involved in the story, generically speaking, because they're part of NATO. So, like, I didn't know if there was something I missed.
Well, anyway, it's by the way, it's kind of funny that the letter that he wrote was to the Prime Minister of Norway. I don't know if you saw that letter. I mean, it was another.
I didn't see it. No.
Oh, Jesus Christ, man. I mean, I'm torn now if I should ask you to go and find it and read it or not. But it's like a Truth Social post in golden letterhead of the president of the United States to another head of state. You got to find it, actually. But the thing is that Iceland and Greenland were part of Norway. Okay, the people who colonized them originally were from that part of the world. And when Norway was joined with Denmark as the Kingdom of Norway and Denmark, but Denmark was the dominant partner in that sort of union. And then the Danes lost the war with Sweden, and they passed Norway off to Sweden, but only continental Norway. They kept Iceland and Greenland, and that's how they have them now. So, if anything, the Norwegians are aggrieved, and trust me, I'm married to one, losing that to Denmark. And here's Trump being like, hey, by the way, why don't we get Greenland? It's all some boats that landed. Like, what? Have you found it by any chance?
Oh no, I didn't start looking. If you want to find it and send it to me, I'll get it.
Yes,
and I'll
please.
queue up the next clip.
Play the next clip.
They were making $50 million, but it would take them 3 years to give you a Patriot missile. I said, that's not good. My chauffeur can do a better job than that, and he makes slightly less than 50. They make big salaries. If they're going to make those big salaries, they're going to have to produce a lot faster. The good news is we have the greatest equipment in the world. Now we're going to start making it a lot faster. They're going to build additional plants. And all of the money that goes into stock buybacks is going to go into building plants. We're not allowing stock buybacks by defense companies any longer. They're going to build new plants to make Tomahawks, Patriots. We have the best equipment. F-35s, F-47, the new one just coming out. They say it's the most devastating plane, fighter jet ever. Who knows? They called it 47. If I don't like it, I'm going to take the 47 off it. I wonder why they called it 47. We'll have to think about that. But if I don't like it, I'm going to take that 47 off.
Every time I hear these clips, I'm baffled by how this was a real speech by a human being.
Okay, would you like to read the DM I just sent you, Gator?
All right. I'm going over there to grab this here. Okay.
I don't think you're going to make it through. Let's make this as a challenge so that you don't break down laughing in the middle of it.
All right. Stoic me. All right. Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what it is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect the land from Russia or China, and why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written I'm not losing this battle, sir. There are no written documents. It's only a boat landed there hundreds of years ago, but we had boats landing there also. I have done more for NATO than any other person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. Thank you, President DJT. I can't believe this is real, but I also can't believe that it's real simultaneously. Like, that's the zone I'm in. Have I ever told you my theory that we all died in 2015 and that we've been existing in a purgatory ever since? Because that's how I've attempted to, resolve all my internal conflict of these time periods since then. But like,
anyway, yeah. So
I lost it almost right off the bat since he started prattling on about the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, it's I don't know what to tell you, man. This is scribblings of, like, if my son, who is in first grade, put this together, I'd be like, that's a very good job, But if you did that 2 years later, I'd be like, you need to work on your style and tone a little.
You know what I think happened? Someone taught him how to do the speech to text on a computer somewhere and showed him that he doesn't need to have people modify his words for him. He can just have the computer take the dictation itself and get it directly as he just prattles on in front of it. Like that's how this reads.
Okay, I think I've figured that you just triggered me into a mode where it's all making sense now. Imagine if somewhere at the NSA they have a kind of a super agent, a Claude Code ++, if you like, a Claude for Work preview on the Turbo Power model, and somehow they couldn't stop him from taking control of it, and he's now able to just control the world by voice, including all the weapons.
Jeez.
It's like, send a letter to
allies, destroyed our economy and gave us perhaps the worst inflation in American history. They say 48 years, I say forever, but I think 48 years is the equivalent to forever. Whether it's 48 years or ever, it's terrible, costing the typical family $33,000. What they did to this country should never, ever be forgotten. It's early, but he has to be rated as the worst president we've ever had by far. The auto pen did much of the damage. He was the auto pen president, because I don't believe a sane president would have ever signed the kind of things that he. So when I called up Emmanuel Macron, I watched him yesterday with those beautiful sunglasses. What the hell happened?
We all are wondering what the hell happened with those sunglasses in Macron, but that I'll give that point to Donnie there.
I said, Emmanuel, you've been taking advantage of the United States for 30 years with prescription drugs. You really should do it, and you will do it. I have no doubt. In fact, I am 100% sure you're going to. No, I will not do it. Because yes, in all fairness to him, he has to double or triple. Because the world being a bigger place than the United States, it's not that you meet in the middle. You just have to go up some, and we come down a lot. They go up a little, we come down a lot. So we're at $130, they're at 10. So they may have to go to 20 or 30. No more than that. I said, Emmanuel, you're going to be doubling or tripling? No. I said, here's the story, Emmanuel. The answer is you're going to do it fast. And if you don't, I'm putting a 25% tariff on everything that you sell into the United States and a 100% tariff on your wines and champagnes. And that's about 10 times more than what I'm requesting. And you're going to do it. I don't want to go public with it, but you may make me do that. No, Donald, I will do it. I will do it. It took me, on average, 3 minutes a country, saying the same thing. You will do it. They all said, no, I will not do it. You're asking me to double the cost of prescription. I said, that's right, because you've been screwing us for 30 years.
Now, Alex, are you familiar with Seinfeld at all?
Really? This
entire WEF speech really does just remind me of the Festivus airing of grievances. That's the entire thing. This you've been screwing us for 30 years.
What happened in 1996? I don't understand.
30 years, 44. Well, you have to also remember that 40 years is almost like forever. That's the metric, right? That's his scale of timelines.
We're operating on biblical timelines where, what is it? 1,000 days is like 1,000 years in the eyes of the Lord and whatnot.
He's more taking the engineering approach to dealing with real numbers. So, a mathematician might say that, the pi is a transcendental number. An engineer might just say it's 3.1415.
A historian might say that the dates that actually things happen matter. Yes, go on.
One of the biggest barriers
but a computer scientist might just put a big number there and deal with it. Sorry, go ahead.
Down payment has been surging credit card debt. The profit margin for credit card companies now exceeds 50%, one of the biggest. And they charge Americans interest rates of 28%, 30%, 31%, 32%. Whatever happened to usury? So to help our citizens recover from the Biden disaster, all caused by this horrible precedent, I'm asking Congress to cap credit card interest rates at 10% for 1 year. And this will help millions of Americans save for a home. They have no idea they're paying 28%. They go out there a little late in their payment and they end up losing their house. It's done it. Finally, I've instructed government-backed institutions to purchase up to $200 billion in mortgage bonds to bring down interest rates. And I'll be announcing a new Fed chairman in the not-too-distant future. I think he'll do a very good job. See, I gave away some of it. I did give that away. So we have something, got something, but somebody that's very respected. They're all respected. They're all great. Everyone that I interviewed is great. Everyone could do, I think, a fantastic job. Problem is they change once they get the job. They do. They're saying everything I want to hear, and then they get the job. They're locked in for 6 years. They get the job, and all of a sudden, let's raise rates a little bit. I call them, sir, we'd rather not talk about this. It's amazing how people change once they have the job, but it's too bad. Sort of disloyal.
If you're playing the home game there, Alex, everyone he's interviewed to replace the Fed chair is great and could do a great job, except for the fact that after you hire them, they don't do anything that they said they would have done that caused you to hire them, which I assume would be a bad job that they would do. So I'm just, if you're keeping score about the type of job the next Fed chair will do.
So, this is not coherent speech. Like there is a logic to it, right? I don't want to sort of say, he's just like, these are not random words. There is a method to the madness, but it's mostly like whatever he wants to say, plus things he remembers as he's saying.
All right, Mr. Right. President, for security reasons, none of these people are permitted to get up in the middle of your speech and leave. So you have free reign. They're basically your prisoners right now. Say whatever you want.
I will say, however, right, that, again, it's not completely uncontrolled because he is careful not to say stuff he's not supposed to say. And sometimes he'll say, I'm not supposed to say. But generally, it's not like we've learned something really important about, the bowels of the deep state or something by his the ramblings. Like tidbits, but not like, anything particularly relevant. I mean, I don't know, maybe somebody knows something. I can't remember any time we were like, oh shit, we just learned about this top secret program because, Trump made a speech.
I was talking
that hasn't happened. So
I was talking to the president of the gray aliens and
exactly. So anyway, whatever. I'm just saying, like, there is a logic to it, and it's not completely out of control what he's saying, but he's definitely not composing speech like a human being.
So we're getting towards the end here.
Like,
of this,
well,
though,
like a regular person would, let's say. Yeah.
Country. I mean, I had a case with Switzerland. We happened to be in Switzerland. Maybe I'll give you a quick story. But they were paying nothing. They make beautiful watches, great watches, Rolex, all of them. They were paying nothing to the United States when they sent their product in. And we had a $41 billion deficit. $41 billion with this beautiful place. Flew over it, isn't it nice? So I said, let's put a 30% tariff on them so that we get back some of it, not all of it at all. We still have a deficit, big deficit. We had 41 million. That's a big deficit. And I said, let's put a tariff on. Different tariffs, different places. You're all party to them. In some cases, victims to them. But in the end, it's a fair thing. And most of you realize that. But we put a 30% tariff on Switzerland, and all hell broke loose. They were calling, I mean, like you wouldn't believe. And I know so many people from Switzerland, incredible place, incredible, brilliant place. But I didn't realize that they're only good because of us. And there's so many other examples. I mean, us, probably other places, but a majority of the money they make is because of us, because we never charged them anything. So they come in, they sell their watches, no tariffs, no nothing. They walk away, they make $41 billion on just us. So I said, no, we can't do that. So I'm going to bring it up. I still would have a deficit pretty substantial, but I brought it up to 30%. And I guess Prime Minister, I don't think President, I think Prime Minister called a woman, and she was very repetitive. She said, no, you cannot do that, 30%. You cannot do that. We are a small, small country. I said, yeah, but you have a big, big deficit. You may be small, but you have a bigger deficit than big countries. He said, no, please, you cannot do it. Kept saying the same thing over and over. We are a small country. I said, but you're a big country in terms of... And she just rubbed me the wrong way, I'll be honest with you. And I said, all right, thank you, ma'am, appreciate it. Do not do this. Thank you very much, ma'am. And I made it 39%.
So this broad calls me, I don't know, she was some sort of prime minister or president or some shit, I don't know. Like,
a woman, can you believe it?
I don't know, but then she rubbed me the wrong way, so I just decided the tariff was more. This is an impeccable negotiating strategy. If I have to, I'm going to take some of these ideas to heart when I engage in future negotiations with people. I think that I can learn a lot from this.
Look, the most important thing, the Trump strategy has a key ingredient. And if you have that, this one weird trick, you literally can say whatever you want. And the one weird trick is nukes.
That is a weird trick. That is a very weird trick.
Good guy.
One weird trick about nucleuses splitting.
And
you won't believe what people
needed it. I would do it in a heartbeat. I'd love to see. We did help them a lot in Los Angeles, a lot with the early in my term when they had some problems. But we would love to do it. I will say this: if I were a Democrat governor or whatever, I would call up Trump. I'd say, "Come on in, make us look good," because we're cutting crime down to nothing, and we're taking people out, career criminals who are only going to do bad things, and we're bringing them back to their countries. But where we've done it has been amazing, and we have a capacity to do it at much greater levels. We're cutting illegal aliens off welfare and other government benefits, and I have directed that starting immediately, there will be no more payments to sanctuary cities, because they are really just sanctuaries for criminals. They're really protecting criminals, and those are the ones we have to get out of the country: murderers, drug dealers, the mentally insane. They emptied their mental institutions into the United States.
And one of them has become president.
And despite that, we have the lowest crime numbers that we've ever had in the history of the country. Just came out. But equally importantly, we're cracking down on more than $19 billion in fraud that was stolen by Somalian bandits. Can you believe that Somalian? They turned out to be higher IQ than we thought. I always say these are low IQ people. How did they go into Minnesota and steal all that money? And we have, they're pirates, they're good pirates, right? But we shoot them out of the water just like we shoot the drug boats out. They're not pirating too many boats lately, do you notice? When they go out into those boats, they want to take over $1.5 billion tanker loaded up with oil. And they say, we're going to blow up your boat. They have powerful weapons. You hit the side of the boat, you blow the whole thing up. The insurance companies are petrified, so they say, just give them the boat. We'll give them money instead. And I don't do that. We blow them right the hell out of the water. We see them going out, we blow them out of the water. We don't have any pirates so much anymore. If we do, they won't be there long. We've cut down with the hitting of the boats that are loaded up with drugs, including submarines. Can you believe they actually buy small, they call mini subs, very fast. They're meant for drugs. We've knocked out 2 of them. The Democrats say they were fishing. You have ruined somebody's fishing weekend, I would say. A submarine is not a fishing boat. You don't fish. But we've knocked down drugs by water, the oceans, the sea, by 97.2%. Think of that. And I actually say, who the hell are the 3%? We live in a incredible, changing period. It's an unbelievable time, but we have to take advantage of the time that we're in. In our hands are technologies that our ancestors could scarcely have. They couldn't have even dreamt some of the things that we see today. And so rapidly they're produced. AI, 2 years ago, nobody ever heard of the term, and now everybody's talking about it. And it can have some very good purpose. It could also have some dangerous purpose. And for that, we have to watch out. But some tremendous things are happening because of it.
Now, 2 years ago, nobody had heard of AI. That was a brand new thing that came up. There hadn't been anyone talking about it before, but now all of a sudden it's everywhere. And now this is the final clip, Alex. The final clip to tie it all out. And as you can imagine, this is exactly what Trump's base would want Trump to say at the WEF.
And we're leading by so much. We're doing so well. But opportunities that are bigger and grander than ever before in human history are right before us. It is the pioneers in this room. Many of you in this room are true pioneers. You're truly brilliant people. Just your ability to get a ticket is brilliant because you have about 50 people for every seat. I don't know what. That's Larry. Everything Larry touches turns to gold. He made this very successful. But you're in this room, and some of you are the greatest leaders anywhere in the world. You're the greatest brains anywhere in the world. And the future is unlimited, and to a large part because of you, and we have to protect you, and we have to cherish you. I always say we have to cherish our brilliant people because
So that's how he closed out his speech there. Alex, I imagine that the MAGA crowd will be exceptionally happy to find out that he said that we have to cherish and protect the members of the WEF because they are the brilliant leaders.
Every time we say WEF, I hear WWF, and my brain goes, yeah, no lie detected. I don't know what to tell you, man. I honestly, I think the MAGAs at this point are busy talking about how if you walk around with a concealed carry, you deserve to be shot. So they have it doesn't no concerns whatsoever about flipping. The ones that did are long gone. The ones that are left are all of them individually and collectively competing for gymnastics Olympics gold.
So would you agree with my earlier sentiment that this speech will go into the annals of history and be remembered as being on par with the Gettysburg Address or other speeches that maybe rise to that level?
It is all I can tell you. It's something. That's the best I can do. It's quite something. I worry that we've got 3 years left, so it is but one chapter in a very long book.
Wild. It is going to be very wild to see what he can do to up the ante on all of this so far. Because, oh boy. Well,
yeah, I mean, cognitive decline or not, he's not slowing down per se.
I'm going to play one more clip to round out the show as I give people some space to request to speak if they have any comments on anything we've discussed so far. We won't take too much time because obviously we're already going over on our normal allotment, but I do want to get an opportunity to at least get one or two people up here to air some comments or thoughts to aid the discussion as I play one final clip, Alex. And this is because he spent so much time harping on Greenland. It would be good to see how that idea is resonating in the broader populace as we approach this season of midterms.
There's been a suggestion among some that one of the things the president is trying to do by focusing on Greenland is maybe to distract from other things. With us now, CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton. So how much are people focused on Greenland opposed to other things?
Yeah, okay, so this is the whole idea, John. The President of the United States didn't like the focus on the Epstein files. We're going to change the subject and we're going to go over to Greenland. And from that perspective, it's worked. Look at this, Google searches versus December. For the Epstein files, down through the floor, far fewer people are searching for the Epstein files, down 72%. Of course, you can't fall any lower than down being 100%. Versus for Greenland, look at this, the highest on record, up like a rocket, almost up 1,600%. My goodness gracious. So if the idea was to distract from the Epstein files and focus the American people on something else, it has been a success by that metric.
But we don't know if that was the goal here, but if it was. Now, how is saying focus on Greenland opposed to the Epstein files in terms of focusing on an issue that's good for you?
Yeah, okay. So if this was the idea, right, well, it's a bad idea politically speaking. Why do I say that? Because take a look here. Trump's net approval rating on the Epstein files, look at that, just absolutely awful. 38 points below water. But any try to buy Greenland is somehow even more unpopular. Look at this. It's 40 points below water. There is barely an issue out there that's worse for Donald Trump than the Epstein files. But any attempts to buy Greenland or use military force on Greenland, which even polls worse than this, is one of them. It is arguably the most unpopular thing that Donald Trump can try to do is mess with Greenland.
So Greenland is polling worse than the Epstein files.
You got it.
All right. How is the president's approval rating right now compared to other presidents at this term?
Yeah, so the idea might be, hey, Donald Trump sees my approval ratings are low. I might try and raise them. This won't do it. And the truth of the matter is, if we're talking about a year into term number 2, look at this. I've got all the last 6 presidents who went into term number 2 got a year in. And you see this, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, Donald Trump is below all of them. The only person who is even lower than Donald Trump when it comes to his net approval rating at this point into term number 2 is Richard Nixon. In any comparison, when you are into term number 2 and approval rating that you have, if you're anywhere close as he's the only one lower, that is not a comparison that you want on your dial.
This is in the middle.
All right, Alex, any thoughts on that last little part as we close out because nobody had requested to speak?
No, I'd just like to make an appeal, let's say, to the hardcore Trump sort of acolytes that I see a bunch. If you care about the things you suppose you claim to care about, and any of Trump's agenda or non-agenda items such as Greenland, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like you pick the topic you care about. Making the government a lot stronger, increasing the Pentagon's budget by 50%, and then proceeding to crater the Republican Party for a decade is not it, okay? It's just not going to do it. Oh my God, this is going to be so bad. I don't know, Gator, what do you think?
I still remark, that this is only year 1. It has been a very long year of news with him. COVID felt like, 5 years condensed into 2 years, but already this one feels like 3 years condensed into 1. So I think that's a little bit more of a time stretch factor there. And I'm just, my concerns at the moment, if I were to summarize them without requiring us to delve too far into it, is that he doesn't have the wisdom to know when it is appropriate to silently withdraw from one of his specific focuses, which means that he is the type of person, I believe, that is willing to be very defiant in opposition constantly and never knows how to silently retreat, which means that we are possibly looking at some situations to come where a change of course, with even if you don't acknowledge it, though, specifically, a change of course would be required for him to not get bogged down in his quagmire of his own making, because he's not oppositionless, despite the fact that he controls both the House and the Senate and controls, with quotes around it, the Supreme Court, at least in generic ideological alignment. But he doesn't seem to know how to do anything other than throw all his spaghetti at the wall immediately to see what sticks. And I don't think he has any plans to win the midterms or help the party win the midterms to be able to make sure that he's keeping control. So he's just going to go for everything. And so if we're talking about the ICE in Minnesota, even if you do it silently and not make an announcement, it's probably best for your long-term plans to silently retreat from the activity in Minnesota, at least for a while, because right now the optics are not good for you. The protesters, regardless of what you think about the protesters, they're winning that war right now. And I not only for the damage that can be done, but the risks that come with it, the actual legitimate risks that come with it. But in addition, just the strategic faux pas that would come with him doubling down or tripling down with activity in Minnesota, making sure that everyone is focused on things that happen there and making the probability that more people could lose their lives. I just don't see him doing the smart thing and retreating from situations like that. So I'm anticipating some really unfortunate scenarios in the next couple of months that make all of his efforts, the ones I might agree with in particular,
like people like causes. Getting shot like dogs on the street, stuff like that. You think?
Well,
I hear about Minnesota, and I don't know if we see it the same way or whatever, but I think on the meta we do agree, which is that if you think that these are leftist agitators, who, by the way, if they were in Iran, you'd be like, these are on the side of angels. But let's forget about okay, these are here. So they're bad people. I get it. And you highlight, not you, Gator, you, the, Republican hive mind, whatever, the Trump administration highlights that these are trained agitators whose objective is to create bad publicity by short-circuiting the method of policing that ICE is engaging in, and so your response to that is, we're gonna do more of it.
That's more right. Where my sentiment is. Like I am certainly of the opinion.
Do you have a countermeasure? Well. No,
I know these people well.
No, we're not.
and they are.
Are you gonna adjust your strategy in some way? No, we're going to hire even less trained people to do even more patrolling. They're great. I'm losing track on whose side you're on.
That is more of the position that I wind up on. Like, as it should be understood, I'm very much against the federal government being as strong as it is. So I am going to be naturally inclined to be relatively disappointed when the government starts to flex its power here and there and everywhere, because there's far too many laws and the enforcement of them is far too reckless. But let's table that perspective aside, and let's say that I would be in line with enforcing the immigration policy that we have, which, that's a huge can of worms. But let's say that I am supportive of that. And now let's also further say that I understand greatly that these protesters are strategic and are purposely doing things that set up their adversary, which is the ICE agents, to look bad in the public and have a more difficulty in carrying out their rules. That's the game you are in. That is the environment you are in. And if you double down on what you're doing, knowing that your opponent is beating you in that particular PR realm, then you're going to continue to lose because you haven't modified your strategy in any way whatsoever. And that's only going to escalate to more things that are undesirable. And you can say, well, fuck around and find out till the cows come home. But what you wind up with is literally parts of your country collapsing under that pressure. And that's not good. There's my...
Even if you think about it from a strategic perspective, it's like, what is the objective of ICE in Minnesota? Like, how many illegals, quote unquote, are they looking for? And what is, the percent complete here, where if they hit the number, they'll leave? Or isn't, or there isn't a number, and this is just gonna keep going. And who benefits? Like, none of it makes any sense.
Well, let me ask you what might be a question that a detractor might ask, which is, well, how many should be a good goal? Like, what is a good goal? You're posing the question of what is the goal.
I don't know.
Would you say would be a good goal? And how many is enough to get rid of?
Look, as we've talked about this before, I'm extremely confused about the numbers I'm hearing. I'm hearing that there's like, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million, unwanted, unlawful alien presences. And I'm not talking about the Greys in the United States. Okay. All right. Where are they? You're not going to find them holed up in a house somewhere, right? We are talking about an economy. Okay, so if you were seriously engaged in a process of rooting that out, you're not going to go one by one. Here's a Jorge and whatever, and let's get them out, because you're going to get this. What you do is you figure out the macro, right? Like, what is the incentive gradient that is allowing them to stay here, and how do I change it?
Well, but you've made that sentence a little bit too simplistic to imply that there hasn't been things along those lines because of jurisdictional differences, meaning that you have things such as sanctuary cities, and you do have local governments of varying degrees that are actually placing opposition against your efforts to do this, meaning that the question that you just asked is sort of a false question, because you can say, like, well, what can we do to more strategically solve this problem? Well, if you don't have people cooperating up and down the scale on the local government side, then you can't answer it that way.
Well, no, because that's like, that is admittedly part of the environment, right? I for sure, I'm not quite pushing back on that. But there's also the people who employ those people, right? Who are they? Where are they? Are they being prosecuted? It's not mom and pop shops either. There's just not enough of them. Again, this is why I'm saying it's an economy. This is what I was referring to, perhaps too obscurely. But you follow the money. And, trust me, if there's even 10 million people, there's a lot of money that is moving, to sustain them and whatever. So what are they doing in that regard? Like, it doesn't make a difference. It is, I think we both agree, a negative, actually, to try to do it the way that it's like trying to fight cancer by, I don't know, screening somebody's blood and trying to find the odd cancer cell.
This phenomenon that we're witnessing in Minnesota is not across every state that they are operating in, and I don't believe that we see a direct correlation between the quantity of people that they are catching and deporting and violent encounters with anti-ICE protesters. It is my understanding, a very regional phenomenon, and that is because there are, let's say, anti-fascist / other types of adjacent activists who are very coordinated and do have information networks that they can call upon to get people to act and even micro learn, let's say, with little instruction sets that give them things that can cause ICE trouble, whether it is a good idea for those people to be doing on the individual level or not. So as an example, this Minnesota ICE action network that the woman who lost her life a few weeks ago, maybe it was even last week, was reportedly a part of, or at least her partner was a part of, has posted items such as this. Understanding there will be legal risks. Direct action. What to do when you're about to witness a kidnapping in public. Now, remember, all ICE arrests are determined kidnappings by people in this type of community. They are illegitimate by their very nature. There is no legitimate ICE activity. Call community and ask for help. Break the bystander effect. Let the victim in your car. Ask questions and waste time. Ask a nearby business to let them in a lockable room or office. Ask a nearby block the kidnappers' cars with multiple cars. Call surrounding businesses and alert street vendors. Don't ask the victims their name or date of birth. Ask for an emergency number or name of a family member. Ask white witnesses to put their bodies in front of the person that's being kidnapped. Now, that's the environment we are in. And there is a pathology inside of these progressive channels where white people have a sense of internal guilt and thus responsibility, to where they believe this mantra that they are a person of privilege, that it is their duty to pay amends for all of the crimes of their white ancestors and all of the ways that their settler colonial ancestors have harmed people of color and other disadvantaged groups, other people of the BIPOC community or what other AAP community that you have. And it is therefore their duty to take instructions from these other people about how they can best be used in order to fight for positive change. And in this instruction set, it is literally ask your white people to put themselves in between you and the kidnappers being ICE agents, which happens to be a similar thing to what we witnessed just the other day that resulted in that person getting shot, which is interfering with law enforcement. The instructions are specifically for them to put themselves in between and interfere with the law enforcement engaging in their duties. That is an invitation, not for execution, as people would call it, but an invitation, even just probabilistically, for something awful to happen. And ICE going into that and continuing to ramp up, knowing that they are losing this battle both physically, meaning that they are meeting increased resistance over and over again, and that they are also losing, persuasively speaking, that they are losing public confidence, means that they have to accept that that's the environment they're in. We don't have to ignore the fact that their opposition is definitely playing an asymmetric version of this game and doesn't have all pure intent with their behavior. But that doesn't mean that we have to double or triple or quadruple the efforts just because of that and go like, well, fuck it. Like that's not good.
But also, Gator, consider that there is a little bit of a contradiction there, which is to say, are you saying that this manual is effective or ineffective? Or are you saying it's a mix of ideologies that are irrelevant plus strategically correct advice?
I'm not sure I understand the specifics. Could you please rephrase it?
Let me be more specific. You say, they said, put your white body in front of the conquerors, whatever the terminology was. Yeah. Okay. So, and I agree with you that there is this whole theory around blah, 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 blah. But I can't help but notice or think, whatever you want to say, that if Renee Good was, I don't know, a black woman in her 40s, the discourse around the situation would be a lot different, and the amount of attention would be a lot different, and probably a lot less. So, unfortunately, we can talk about whether white fragility is valid or not. Not, by the way, but I think in terms of optics, they have a point.
So I don't think majority of what I was saying about the demographic.
I'm just saying that, like it may be that they're right for the wrong reason or whatever, but I think we have to recognize that when the people get that shot look like your average, corn-fed American from Iowa, the reaction of the broader public does tend to be a lot more intense.
Okay. So if what you're saying is that the fact that they are using this white aspect is to play off of their anticipation of the response that the public would have, which means just there is additional sympathy, even if it was a marginal increase in the sympathy and the ability for the narrative to be deemed as significant towards their end, that is a real fact. I'm not denying that that could be a component. I'm simply referring to the point that you have two, maybe three categories, but two primary categories of activist. You have the determined, dedicated, and lifelong practicing activists, the people who actually are doing this as their day-to-day life. This is part of who they are. They engage in this activity, and they are regimented, almost like militia-like regimented. And then you have the external, progressive, wider information network, the people who are willing to, quote, get involved, perhaps like almost like their own pseudo National Guard, like 2 weekends a month or something like that. They're willing to put in a little bit of time. They're not very well regimented, but they read these Instagram feeds. They spread these messages internally. So when they go out to protest, they are taking these little pieces of advice, as ill-trained and ill-prepared as they are to do it as systematic and methodically, and they are taking action on them. And each one that does, every single individual one that does that, increases the probability that something can go awry, that a cop can have a very bad shoot, meaning that they shot them inappropriately, or that they shot them appropriately in the sense that they were justified in thinking that there was a threat worth taking out. That you increase the probability every single instance of an individual participating in this type of instruction. And so the thing that everyone needs to understand is that right now, those protesters are winning the narrative battle. They are affecting the average person, the person who you would otherwise need to have your back in enforcing the immigration laws. Those people are being affected by witnessing this chaos. And it does not, at the end of the day, seem to be worth it to just keep pumping resources into Minnesota to continue to have these conflicts. I think perhaps if this were the first instance of this type of action, there might be more acceptance of let's say, this necessary situation to have in order to enforce the immigration. But we're talking now, this is the 6th year of anarchist type of protests and clashes with the federal government, and even longer if you go back to earlier, before the George Floyd and things like that. And there is a fatigue. And if Minnesota is one of these places where it's just untenable to enforce because of this chaos, they won. You got 49 other states. You have 49 other states.
Well, I don't look. I there's a lot to say here. So the one thing I will say is, to the degree that this is signature color revolution methodology, does that track for you? That is it. This is the kind of thing we're talking about. That this is sort of, these activists, everything you described, right? Force the authorities to do something that creates the kind of imagery that then can be used to trigger additional, outrage in the flywheel against them, right? Okay.
Yes.
That technique has been perfected by the very employers of those ICE agents over decades. This is not 6 years, man. This is not 10 years. It's not 20 years.
I'm talking about the people who are watching this happen on their TVs.
25, which is basically forever.
I'm talking about people watching this on their TVs and trying to make the determination about whether they support the cause.
Right. But the Stephen Millers of the world surely have access to information about methodologies, counter methodologies and, how to whatever, right? This is probably iteration 20 or I don't know, 2000 on a very, very long thing. But at the same time, I don't want to burn up this entire genre, right? And while I don't necessarily want to defend specific things, I just want you to sort of put in your mind that, let's say that this was a protest against vaccine mandates, right? Or something that like our corner of Twitter is like really passionate about, right? And they were following similar tactics. We would probably say that this is a way to highlight, to expose, right, the innate contradictions that we believe are true, right? You're basically making a claim on a proof or a bet, right? An ICE agent body that is disciplined and does not mistreat people and is not like, acting like carjackers and or whatever you want to call it, right? Like it's professional, right? Does not have this problem because you can't expose somebody. Like they're not claiming stuff. They're putting them in situations where the fact that they will fucking shoot somebody in the back is proven, right? The whole tactic works because there is a there. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Well, I would ask that you don't have such a certainty that if this was if the activity that was being protested were something I had more affinity for, that I would be okay with all of the tactics that are being used. I would ask that you have less certainty on that because
I don't. I'm just saying, like, I think we might see it differently. Maybe we won't, but like I think generally people would.
But I also, like I said, there is every single person who engages in this activity increases the probability of bad events happening. And one issue that I think I would take with the direction of your line of questioning just there is I don't like to use out analogies constantly, but I will just for this moment. A sporting event is something that has been played millions of times, like football. And they have referees whose job it is to watch and oversee the game. And in something like football, they are constantly going to review the cameras because understanding all of the things that are going on while you are living it in real time is a completely different thing than being able to look frame by frame from different angles to understand the nature of what actually occurred in reality. And so the thing that I would object to would be the degree to which you are asserting that the person who fired the gun from as an ICE agent was in possession of the same visual data that we are at the time, such that if we understand that one of the agents removed the gun from the person and therefore he was unarmed at the time that the other agent began shooting, we are assuming that one, the agent possessed that information, or two, had the ability to make the same assessment we are from the cameras that would make what he was doing completely unreasonable and irrational. Now, there's a second discussion about whether or not the training is adequate. This agent himself was a well-trained person who had the right acumen and was a reasonable person to be in possession of the firearms that he was in possession of to be able to be enforcing this way. That's a separate question, but it is probably not the best thing to assume that just because we have access to something we can watch frame by frame, that it is the same experience that the person who fired the gun had and the decisions that they thought they were faced with at the time that they fired the weapon. It's just two separate things. And so that's the only thing.
And there's a third separate thing, however. There's a third separate thing, and is the place I focus on. I don't care the individual people. I mean, whatever. I'm fully willing to agree that a person put in that position as those agents might have done something like what those agents did. However, somebody in this whole fucking situation has agency, okay? And it can't just be the protesters. There's somebody in an official capacity who's making decisions, and those decisions are affecting outcomes, right? Somebody is deciding tactics, and that somebody has seen the video, has the luxury that we have to have seen, like you said, right? 10, 20, 30, 50, 100, 1,000 incidents, and know what happens when you push a woman down, right? Somebody else steps in, 10 of you guys group up on him. Somebody hears a gun fire, and I don't want to get into whether his gun discharged or somebody said gun and somebody else thought whatever. Somehow, right, like a Ouija board, there's a trigger event, and then you have a panic incident where everybody just starts emptying their weapons on somebody, like on unarmed. In fact, right, not in perception, but in reality, the guy didn't have a gun at that moment, civilian, right? You say, okay, how do I prevent this from happening to my agents? And apparently nobody has thought that. I don't know. It's like, who is designing these policies that lead to this sequence of events happening, that then we're like, well, if they're all around and they're pointing their weapons at them and somebody hears something, well, then of course they're going to shoot. Yes, thank you. How did you it's like one of those movies where you want to freeze frame and one of them turns around and is like, you're probably wondering how I find myself in this situation. And yes, I'm fucking wondering how you find yourself in this situation. Do you understand what I'm saying, Gator?
So I think in a broad sense, that is in line with how I sort of began my discussion, which is that the environment you are in right now is that these activists are winning. And my worry would be that Trump or people in the chain of Trump are not using the wisdom to understand that this is doubling or tripling down is unlikely to be the right solution, despite that being for them, the emotionally satisfying idea. Yep. And that a silent retreat, it was the way that I introduced it. Now you're talking about tactical modification, which to a degree is in line, even though I'm only really referring to retreating from Minnesota as being the tactic. But that is what I'm, saying, that this is the reality that you have. If you know that there are going to be protesters there impeding the thing that you are going to plan to do, and you know that their tactics make it such that an incident like this is more likely to occur because of the shady tactics they're using, it is not sufficient from my perspective to just say, oh, well, they use shady tactics. Yep, they do. That's the reality you're in. So you should probably try to figure out how to work around those. Meaning, reduce the probability that something can go wrong. If that means you have to retreat, then you have to retreat, and perhaps you work out a different plan later. That is, so to that degree, I think we have a meeting of the minds there in sentiment.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the situation from, we might disagree on who, is the, I don't know, maybe I see two sets of bad guys here, but like, it doesn't matter. The point is, yes, I think we both agree that if the administration truly cared and was competent to pursue the goals that they claim to be pursuing, their actions on the ground are not congruent with that hypothesis. Now, that does open up a question as to whether they truly are. This is them just truly trying to reduce the number of illegals in the country or whatever, or there's something else going on. And I don't know. I don't have any special information, but I think it has to be considered. If you claim you want A and the things you're doing are going to cause like not A, well, then somebody has to wonder whether you truly do want A or not.
Fair enough. And I think that's a good, as close to a mutual agreement sort of thing as possible that we can land on right now. I hopefully I answered the questions that you had with respect to what I thought on the matter.
I think we did a good job, actually. I think we did a good job. Yes, and yeah. I think we look. My standards for discourse. This is a very good conversation, regardless. But even if it wasn't, like, my standards for discourse at this point are: please don't celebrate when humans are shot. Just can we can we start from there, where you don't like party? Not you, Gator. Like
yes,
they.
Yes. Yes, the royal.
I just see so much fucking bloodlust, as if this same thing is not going to happen to some people you care about tomorrow, that I don't know, man. Like, it's just so short-sighted. Never mind inhuman, but like also strategically stupid. If not from the administration, but definitely from the foot soldiers, if you like, of the movement. Be that as it may. Anyway, I appreciate the conversation, Gator. I think we did a good job. I don't want to sort of make it sound like there's no nuance possible. There's not like another point of view here. I just I do think no matter where you're coming from and who has your sympathies to begin with, on a purely utilitarian perspective, we can see that something is going terribly wrong.
Okay. I think we can settle on that. Alex, thank you for joining me again for another dumb week, and we will do this again next one. In the next month or so, I hope to have some longer form, we'll call them specials, on here. I've been preparing some things that are both deserve our attention and are entertaining, but they might be done as off weekend sort of special releases. We'll see what time affords. And with that, I wish everyone to have a wonderfully dumb week. Alex, especially you, have the dumbest week you possibly can.
It's a safe bet, my friend. A safe bet at this.
Everyone take care. See you next week.
Have a great week, everybody.